Okay, ladies and gentlemen, with that unusual beginning, I'd like to call to order the September 19th, 2006 meeting of the Glendale City Council at 6:05 p.m. May we have a roll call?
Council members Manukian.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
Quintero.
Here.
Yusefian.
Here.
Mayor Weaver.
Here. Flag salute tonight will be led by Councilmember Yusefian and the invocation by City Clerk Artie Kasakian.
Please stand up and follow right after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The great American football coach Vince Lombardi once said, "People who work together will win, whether it be against complex football defenses or the problems of modern society." Tonight, let us pray for guidance to be able to work together in concert with one another to find equitable solutions to our community's problems and issues. Let us pray that we are able to work with one another to build a city that serves all of its residents and is fair to everyone regardless of religion, race, background, or station in life. We pray for this, and we pray for the safety of our men and women in the armed forces who defend our rights as Americans. Amen.
Amen. May we have your report?
The agenda for the September 19, 2006 regular meeting of the Glendale City Council was posted on Thursday, September 14, 2006 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. What is next?
At 3 is presentations and appointments. At 3A is agenda preview for the meeting of September 26, 2006.
Thank you, and Mr. McFall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Next week on September 26 on the Housing Authority and the Redevelopment Agency, there's no specific business items, although there is a joint meeting, the Glendale City Council and the Housing Authority, for council to consider the submission of the Glendale Homeless Continuum of Care 10-year strategy that will be presented by the Director of Community Development. On the City Council agenda, under the action items, there will be a report from the Director of Parks and Recreation regarding a landscape maintenance contract. The Director of Administrative Services will be bringing in the report on the utility users tax exemption for low-income individuals with disabilities. And the Director of Public Works will be providing a sound wall briefing on the 134 freeway. There's 2 hearings that are scheduled. First, both by the Director of Planning. There will be a resolution adopting a negative declaration and ordinance for introduction regarding the South Brand Boulevard specific plan relating to the comprehensive revision of land uses. And lastly, a motion approving a tentative track map relative to the Glendale Adventist Medical Center.
Thank you.
That would be it.
What is next, please?
At 3B is appointment of Mr. Chang Yi Lee to Community Development Block Grant Advisory Committee for a 2-year term to expire September 19, 2008, nominated by Councilmember Yusefian.
Mr. Yusefian?
I move, Mr. Lee.
Second.
If you don't move them too far, we'll vote. Roll call.
Council members Manukian.
Yes.
Najarian.
Yes.
Quintero.
Yes.
Yusefian.
Aye.
Mayor Weaver.
Aye. Next, please.
At 3C is reappointment of Mr. Michael James to Design Review Board Number 2.
I will forward his name.
Second.
No discussion. Roll call, please.
Council members Manukian.
Yes.
Najarian.
Yes.
Quintero.
Yes.
Yusefian.
Aye.
Mayor Weaver.
Aye. Next, please.
At item number 4 is City Council and staff comments.
Then it's Mr. Manukian and Mr. Yusefian.
I beat you to it, Mr. Yusefian.
Go ahead. Yeah, by a fraction.
I would like, again, to make a plea for support for Relay for Life. We are in need of sponsors. If there's anyone out there that is willing to step up to the plate and sponsor the event, there's a number of opportunities that are still available. I would like to urge them to come forward and talk to Linda Patrick. I almost said Linda Weaver, but Linda Patrick at 548-4844. It's a great cause in terms of funding cancer research and supporting American Cancer Society. And let's see, it's on, there we go, October 7th and 8th, 10 a.m. to 10 a.m. the following day. It's a great outing for the family. Bring your family, come on out. People have a great time. We had a great time last year, and we'll do so again this year. And again, if you have any questions or if you're willing to sponsor the Relay for Life for the American Cancer Society, call Linda Patrick at 548-3351. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Yusefian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you know, the week before that, we are going to celebrate our Unity Fest, and this year it's going to be a great one. I think it will be rival to what we had the first year. The entertainment is just amazing, and you're going to be very, very surprised at some of the events that are going to take place. I just wanted to let the public know that there were several sponsors that had come forward and put their hard, cold cash to sponsor this event, and we have a silver sponsors, Lexus of Glendale and Introcorp, that have come in, and we have a gold sponsor, which is Glendale News Press, and we have platinum sponsors, which happen to be AT&T Advanced Development Investment Incorporated, Hollywood Production, the Glendale Marketplace, and Charter Communication. Soon you will probably see banners or pretty much more like pennants that will hang on the light poles on Brand Boulevard. It would have the Unity Fest logo on it and the date, courtesy of Redevelopment Agency. And I want to thank all the people in advance that they have come forward and sponsored this event. And there will be something happening next week, Mr. Mayor. I just want to warn you about it in advance, but
Next week.
I'll keep that surprise a
Should you bring
surprise.
bulletproof vests or
I
something?
think so.
I don't know.
think so.
I don't know. He may have to. Anyway, don't forget, it's on the 1st, and we will see you at Verdugo Park.
Are you
Thank
going
you,
to
Mr.
the
Mayor.
dunk tank again?
I am not doing the dunk tank this year. Thank you very much. Pass.
I'm not showing up now.
It killed all the joy. And I'd like to request, Mr. Bird, that staff do a review on the setback requirements on Glen Oaks Boulevard between Mount Carmel and Tryon Place. I don't know when the setback was put in. I think it was many years ago. And I hear there's rumblings of people maybe trying to build out in front of those setbacks. All the homes are set equally back right now. Between Mount Carmel, the 2 freeway, and Tryon. Whatever the setback is, I'd be willing to bet that the houses are set further back than the current setback. If that's true, then we ought to adjust it to what the houses are at. Because one house has come out into that and is sitting more prominent. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Quintero?
Yeah, Mr. Starbird, after talking to some city council members at the League of Cities, I'd like to have a report on how much we may have saved on our workers' compensation since the new laws have taken effect, how much the city saved on workers' comp and how much we're spending for outside attorneys, and just get a general feel for what's taken place since the new
Okay. That just coincidentally, that'll probably be pretty easy because I just read this week a very comprehensive report compiled by our workers' compensation staff on historical costs and nature, and it's quite dramatic how much costs have reduced. We'd like to think part of that is due to our management, but part of it is probably also due to some of the changes in the law. So that'll probably be pretty easy.
Okay. I guess that closes comments. What's next, please?
Next is consent items, including minutes. The following are routine and may be acted upon by one motion. Any member of council or the audience requesting separate consideration may do so by making such request before a motion is passed, and there is, you're right, one card.
I have a card on 5B.
I'd like to pull 5C.
There a motion on the 5A?
I'll move 5A.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
No,
Oh, no, 5A.
just 5A.
Yeah. There's no
Roll call.
objection, will stand approved. Read 5B into the record.
5B is Director of Glendale Water and Power regarding a request for proposals to conduct a power systems analysis, conduct a system protection study, make appropriate recommendations, and provide training for GWP engineering and field operation personnel. At 5B is a resolution approving the RFP and authorizing the Director of Glendale Water and Power to obtain proposals for qualified engineering consulting firms.
I have one card. Barry Allen, 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, staff, and the public. I'm Barry Allen with Vanguard. I found this to be kind of interesting when coupled with the article in the news press this morning about the $100 million 10-year plan for the GWP. And it appears from that article that the GWP is going ahead with a major plan, and yet in 5B we're asking the council to approve a $500,000 3-year study that I would assume from just being a member of the public that it sort of puts the cart before the horse. And I wonder if there is a connection between these two, or if the press release on the 10-year plan went out early. And with regard to the 10-year plan, is that going to require a $100 million bond? I'm Barry Allen for Vanguard for Accountability.
Mrs. Starbird?
Quick response. This is related to just one piece of our overall electrical system, which is the relay system. The article referenced other capital improvements like underground facilities, overhead transmission lines, conversion from our 4 kV distribution system to 12 kV. So this is just one aspect of the system, and that happens to be the relay system. And the consulting services is both with respect to design as well as training for staff.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Is there a motion?
Move 5B.
Second.
Roll call.
Council members Manukian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Yusefian,
Aye.
Mayor Weaver.
Aye. 5C, please.
5C is Director of Public Works regarding Glen Oaks Boulevard Street Rehabilitation Project. At 5C1 is resolution authorizing the city manager to execute all necessary documents on behalf of the city with the State of California Department of Transportation for receiving Surface Transportation Program local STP-L funds. At 5C2 is resolution of appropriation.
Mr. Manukian.
Yes. We have an initial cost for the project of $126,000 for the preliminary engineering. That's what we're approving today.
Correct.
Of which $111,500 is coming from the state
correct.
funds. The whole project will cost approximately $3,118,000.
Correct.
Do we have funds to complete the project, or are we just doing the engineering and then if the funds come, we'll complete?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Manukian, we have the STIP local funds to fund the entire project.
Okay.
But since they pay us in arrears, we take it one phase at a time.
Okay.
So we're asking you to allocate some undesignated monies as soon as the project's done and complete and Caltrans has approved it. They'll pay us. They'll send us a check for those monies.
How much of the $3,118,000 of the project is coming from Caltrans? Do you know?
About 90% of it.
And will we have to fund most of it before we get the money back from Caltrans?
Well, yes, but we have set aside as part of our budget.
So we have the funds to complete the project. We're not just taking one step without looking at the long term.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And I will move 5C if there are no
Second.
other questions.
Since you brought it up, just so the public knows, we're going to put down new asphalt rubber hot mix on it, repair broken curbs and gutters, sidewalks, reconstructing curb ramps, installing 3 new pedestrian crosswalk lights, and that's from the Burbank border to Grandview.
Correct.
Yes. One more.
And we're going to
question.
grind that, right?
Correct.
Before you put down
Yes.
the asphalt.
I'll make sense.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Yusefian, we will always grind it. That will never happen again.
Okay.
And when is the estimated completion date? And how many miles is it that we're repaving?
From Grandview
Mr.
to-
Mayor, Councilmember Manukian, I don't know the exact mileage
It's
offhand.
documented.
1 to 2
yeah.
miles.
Okay.
And it's estimated, this is a very preliminary initiation of the project, but we're looking at October 2007 to finish the project.
A year, approximately a year.
Approximately
project.
a
Okay, very good.
Is there a motion now?
There was a motion.
There wasn't a second.
Okay, roll call.
Council members Manukian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Yusefian,
Aye.
Mayor Weaver.
Aye. Next, please.
At 6 is oral communication. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Council may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The city manager may refer the matter to the appropriate department for investigation and report.
Thank you. First is the tag team match of Cindy Williams and Paula Devine, followed by Armin Gregorian. It's more than a tag team.
Mayor, members of the council and staff, my name is Cindy Williams, and I am the chairperson for the team members for the Relay for Life. And we're here to speak today on the Relay for Life and encourage any citizens out there to be part of it. Thank you, Councilmember Manukian, for promoting the Relay for Life. You gave a lot of information that we were going to provide, but we also want to encourage participants to be citizens to be participants as team members. If anyone is interested in joining a team or becoming making up their own team, they can call me directly. My name is Cindy Williams, and the number they can call is 818-548-3926. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Paula Devine. Mayor Weaver and council members, Jolene and I are here together for the team Hope Rises 2 for the Relay for Life, and our fundraiser is for everybody that cannot go to the relay on October 7th and 8th, and for those who can go. It's a dinner at Farniente Restaurant. It is Sunday, September 24th, from 5:30 to 8:30. It is at 204 1/2 North Brand Boulevard. Jolene is going to tell you a little bit about it. The response has been terrific, and we're hoping that a lot more people will attend.
Well, it is a buffet. It's $20 for salad, pasta, and a dessert. If you would like a nice glass of wine with it, that's $25. We're going to have opportunity drawing prizes ranging from gift certificates from Islands to Billy's Deli to Eggerman Crystal Bowls. And then we're going to have a silent auction at the Peninsula Beverly Hills. A weekend for two, Hotel Sofitel. We have Laker tickets. We have a wide variety of prizes. All the money is going to the American Cancer Society. So we encourage everyone to come out.
It's this Sunday, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
This Sunday at
5:30 to
Farniente.
8:30 at Farniente. So after the friendship games, which I think is a great activity, everyone can come over to Farniente and have dinner
Interesting.
and support
Antonio
American
goes
Cancer.
to Italy, and you do it while he's gone.
He said there you go. That's the plan.
He went there while you were doing that.
He said he spends the money and they make it, so he's good for him.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
And,
you.
Thank you very much.
I have put on another hat for just one brief moment, if I may, for the Commission on the Status of Women. Tomorrow night at the Central Library from 6 to 8, we are presenting a workshop called Dollars and Cents, and this is in partnership with Senator Jack Scott's office and the California Society of Certified Public Accountants. For all the families in the Glendale community that have children, that have to worry about perhaps funding for college, for saving for retirement, investing, all of those money problems. This is a financial literacy workshop. If you are concerned, young families, that you have children and you don't know what to do with them, but you want to come to the workshop, they are providing free child care. We will have light refreshments. So please, if you're a grandparent, have your kids come with their children and learn how to save money so that when the children are old enough, they'll have money for college, retirement, health care, and all the other problems that happen when we don't look to the future financially. So it's called Dollars and Cents. It is tomorrow night, Wednesday, September 20th, at the Central Library Main Auditorium from 6 till 8 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Armin Gregorian, followed by Alexis Mathis.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, Mr. Starbird, staff. My name is Armand Gregorian, Executive Director of Homeland and Glendale area chapter. I'm here to speak about Glendale Friendship Games, but before we do that, I would like to also add that Homeland is very proud for the second year is participating in Relay for Life, and we have already started the past month recruiting our members to make donations for that event. As you recall, 2 weeks ago, I was here in front of you and talked about Glendale Friendship Games. Details were not ready back then, and today, 3-4 days before the event, I'm here to give you a report and give you the details of the program. We have approximately 500 athletes from City of Glendale participating in this event, and I can mention one of the teams, which is a AYSO All-Star team participating in a soccer tournament, and also first responders, which is a combination of police department and fire department, that they are participating in the soccer tournament at an advanced stage.
From our police and fire?
Yes, yes. I mean, anybody above 20. Advanced. I'm in advanced stage myself. Saturday and Sunday, the 23rd and 24th, is the event at Glendale High School. Both days games start at 9 a.m. and until 9 p.m. On Saturday, the festival and the festivities and the music starts at 4 o'clock, and on Sunday it starts at 1 o'clock. I have hand-delivered invitations for all of you. I hope that you have received it, and we really hope to see you both days, if not both days, at least Sunday at closing ceremony. We hope to see you there. Don't forget, Saturday at 5 p.m. we're having that famous basketball game. Some of you are going to be participating in that game, which is going to be leaders of the city.
Mr.
And the school
Yusufian is
district.
our center.
I'm sure he is,
And Mr. Manukian is the guard.
definitely.
My back
Actually,
surgery
I've
already.
heard that your city clerk is going to participate in that basketball game, too.
He'll be the forward.
And also from school district, and we have asked the police department to have also some captains to participate in the event. We do have chess players from police department also. We really want to thank them for helping us any which way they can. And just to let you know that on Saturday, we're going to have a mariachi band, and on Sunday, we're going to have a salsa band, in addition to some other music that is going to be there. During the closing ceremony, we're going to have Glendale High School choir and drill team. So all in all, the event is going to be fun. It's going to be a family-oriented thing, and I really invite the whole Glendale community to come there and participate. If you have any questions.
So what is the day that we make
You're-
full of ourselves?
Yeah,
It's
no,
on
no,
Friday?
I wouldn't call that. I wouldn't call
days,
that.
Bob?
It's Saturday, 5 p.m.
And where is it going to be?
at Glendale High School Boys Gym. Yes, sir,
Absolutely.
definitely.
You should.
Yeah, definitely.
I think I'm going to have a heart attack.
We'll be careful.
5 Saturday,
5 Saturday.
the All-Star game.
That's the All-Star game, and on Sunday it's the closing ceremony.
And is it going to be a full-length game?
Well, it all depends who's playing.
Do we have to wear shorts?
Can we just play horse instead, or no?
You don't
We're going to
shock
put it
the
on a
audience.
boat. The people in the stands will decide what you're going to wear.
I'm wearing full pads, that's for sure.
That's right.
If
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alexis, is it Matthews, or followed by Palm Hefner?
Good evening, Mayor and Councilman. My name is Alexis Mathis, and I've been the youth editor of an international newspaper since it started 2 years ago. It's the Youth for Human Rights International News, which I have right here. This one. And we publish the news about young people who reach out to people in their communities, teaching them human rights. And I'm 14, and I'll be 15 next month. And I was born in Glendale, and I've lived here all my life, and I love it. And I've been a member at the Glendale YMCA since I was 3, and I've done gymnastics there since I was 8. And I'm a level 6 gymnast now. But really, my focus right now in the community is on bullying and intolerance. I want to end it in our schools and playgrounds, on our streets, and even on the internet. But it's not like the city has to write new laws about it, because there are plenty of laws and rules and other such things. It's just, and we can't demand that the cops get tougher, that our school officials become cops, or that parents get stricter. We need to teach people human rights. A couple of years ago, a 19-year-old LA Film School graduate, also a friend of mine, Taron Lexton, produced this video called United. It's a music video which shows like about bullying and such things, and it's actually really powerful. I love it. It's hip-hop, street smart, and it's funny in some spots. And it hits those who've experienced bullying on both sides. I do have a minute to show you this public service announcement that was Taron's project right after he did United. It was released at the United Nations about a month ago. Taron produced these when he was 21. Each one teaches one of the articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and all of them are a great lesson. So here's the first one of 30.
Can you tell which of these children was not born free? Can you tell which of these children was not born equal? Can you tell which of these children does not deserve to be treated with dignity? We can't either. Human right number one. We are all born free and equal. What are human rights? Find out at youthforhumanrights.org.
So, in closing, I just wanted to thank you for taking up this topic. And on behalf of Youth for Human Rights International, our resources are available to all of you. Thank you very much.
Before you go, Mr. Mayor, could you show me first, I really want to commend you and the organization for coming up, and, I got emotional watching the video, so just so you know. I think it's tremendously important what you're doing, and I have tremendous amount of respect for you and for what you're doing. So I'd like to see the DVD that was, which one is it? The United, is it?
United.
And how long are these DVDs?
This one's 7 minutes, right? Yeah, 7 minutes.
Okay, and you showed a second DVD. What is that?
This is the DVD with all 30 of those PSAs, because that was just one of them. There's 30 of them.
And I'd like to get those DVDs, actually, if like to purchase them, if that's possible. And I would also like to invite you, if you were willing to speak on this topic on the show that I do every Wednesday night about city events. If you'd like to come, I'd be more than happy to have you on the program, and you talk about. The show's not about me, but it'll be about you and what you're, and you can show that United DVD as well. I think the work that you're doing is tremendous, and I'm really impressed. So,
thank you. That would be great.
If you would leave your telephone number so I can contact you and give you directions and all of that.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for what you've done.
Thank you.
And what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Palm Hepner, followed by Margaret Hammond.
Good evening. My name is Palm Hepner, and I'm a mother of two and a Glendale artist who's been blessed with success. Recently, in the last few years, I've dedicated my art to the same effort, to human rights and trying to get human rights out. And looking around in Glendale, I see in this diverse community a real opportunity to actually capitalize on our diversity, to head off the contention and conflict that can sometimes pop up as racial discrimination or tension, sometimes as religious intolerance and sometimes as ethnic or culture bias. When I see that sort of thing, I can't help but want to do something myself, like create a piece of art to do something. So you see, I've created We Believe in Peace. Last month, on behalf of Artists for Human Rights, which is the group that I'm associated with, I took this piece and I took it to an international scale. I presented it to the United Nations, and they received this piece, and it was Action 2, which is one of the human rights representative at the UN who is actually dedicated to developing countries and getting human rights known all over the world. So they now hang this in the United Nations. And the purpose that I did it is I just wanted to let people know about human rights, and I've organized a group that has a lot of artists that are dedicated to this. There's a quote down here by an author and humanitarian, L. Ron Hubbard, and it says, "On the day when we can fully trust each other, there will be peace on earth." So, you wonder why I bring this up tonight. I want you to know that I support Youth for Human Rights International and their efforts to use the audiovisual arts that you saw earlier to disarm the school bully and the neighborhood bigot alike. I bring all this up tonight because there's something I feel we can do here in Glendale. For 25 years, there has been a day, the day after tomorrow, in fact. I don't know if you know this, but it's a day and it's called Peace Day. It's on Thursday, September 21st. It's been going on for 25 years, and there's more than 2,500 communities worldwide that are making this day a huge event. But I look down the roster of California Peace Day events and see none of the city of Glendale there. And I think we should change this. So I want to suggest that our city council act on behalf of the diverse colors, cultures, and creeds of Glendale and declare a day of peace and community in our city. If it's too short notice to officially proclaim it for this Thursday, I understand. We actually have a day-long celebration coming up on Sunday, October 1st, Unity Fest, which was mentioned earlier this evening. That could be the centerpiece event for a Peace Sunday in Glendale. Whatever can or can't be officially arranged, it doesn't really matter. We each can do something this Peace Day. Any simple thing you can do would make a difference. The advance of peace and unity in our homes, our streets, our schools, our businesses, and our governments. And one last idea, a prized possession of mine that I've been working on for a while, is on December 10th is Human Rights Day. It's actually been official, and it is Human Rights Day. And I've been working on a project with Artists for Human Rights to create a human sculpture with thousands of people. I'd like to do the sculpture here in Glendale. What it would be a bunch of people, thousands of people getting together, and with flashlights forming the word unity and peace. And you could see this from an aerial photo, maybe from helicopters or whatever professional photographer would take the photo. And I'd like to aim at doing it here in Glendale, because I think this is our city, and we should. It would take thousands of people. It would take a football field. It would take stands to put them on, and it would take flashlights. Sponsoring is encouraged. But I think it would be great for our city. And I think we all want peace. So thank you, Mayor Weaver and Councilman. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Manoukian?
Or can we have a proclamation proclaiming Peace Day?
Yeah.
You said it's September 21st.
Yeah.
Maybe we can do it during the Unity Fest. I think that's a great suggestion, and I think we should go from there. And then also the issue with the December 10th.
Yes.
The least we can do is at least proclaim December 10th as Human Rights Day. So I would like to suggest that for the council. If we need to take a vote on it, I think it should be agendized. Thank you.
Thank you.
Margaret Hammond, followed by Barry Allen.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and city staff. My name is Margaret Hammond, and I think the people preceding me have wonderful ideas of how people should be treated and how we should treat each other as neighbors and citizens in this city. Unfortunately, I do not feel that we are all being evenly given equal treatment because, for instance, in the case of the banquet halls, such as the Renaissance, where they have been allowed to virtually do whatever they wanted as far as the parking, I have asked over and over regarding it. I have looked into it over and over. And yet they were granted permits and for 500 people, and they have 53 and 101 if they do piggyback. They were granted permits. They supposedly got parking at other areas around where they were, but I would love to see those contracts and actually know that they were given. We are looking at the Phoenicia, which was granted a permit as a restaurant originally, as Phoenicia and then Kicks or whatever it was. Again, without adequate parking. Why? Why do these things keep going on? We know from the reports that we were asked people what was the biggest problem in the city. And what did it come down to? Parking. And parking on the streets. And traffic. Now, you don't think that having people open businesses without adequate parking is a problem? I think it goes on over and over. Other businesses have to be in compliance with the city rules. Why is it that there are certain businesses that do not have to and that keep on being allowed to be in business, such as the Montrose collections? Over and over. The police are there. They're not supposed to be in business. No, they're not. And they are breaking all the rules and regulations that every Friday and Saturday, there they are. They make a lot of money, don't they? And they're operating illegally. If it were a gambling house or anything of that nature, everybody would be up in arms. What does it cost the city for the police to be there? To go in when there's noise and drunk and nasty behavior and trash in the laneways and so forth and on people's lawns? What does it take to have this thing corrected? I don't think that the rest of us people in Glendale should have to pay for the policing of these places over and over, and I would still like to know what kind of income the city gets from them. There never seems to be an answer. Again and again, I say, you know how much the Galleria gives us. We know how much the auto dealers give us. We know all these things. But why don't we know how much the banquet halls pay into the city? It's a very interesting question, I believe. And I don't think it's fair to the rest of us in the city to have to pick up the ticket for the policing and the parking, the neighborhoods being downgraded and people not even wanting to buy near them, according to some of the people that I have talked to in Montrose. The homes that back up to that laneway where that Montrose collection is, I would not want to live there. There's no way you could coax me. I wouldn't care how cheap it was because I wouldn't like to be losing my sleep. I wouldn't like to be embarrassed when I had company with the trash in the laneways behind me and the smell, and it's unbelievable that this is being allowed. I do not understand why we, the rest of us in Glendale, the rest of us citizens, are being put through this. Why are not the rules being enforced? Why are they continually being broken? And that they're allowed to be broken and continually. It isn't just something that's new. No, it's been going on for several years, that they morph from restaurants into banquet halls without adequate parking, without adequate fire sprinklers, without adequate whatever the rules and regulations. They just do it. And, of course, the answer is always, well, those are your laws. They're not our laws, and we don't have to obey them. You made the laws. You have to obey them. We don't. We'll do as we like. And that's about what it comes down to. That's the feeling. And that's over and over. I have had at least 10 people in the last 2 days stop me and talk about this situation. And I really feel that we need to look at this whole thing very carefully and find out why it's allowed to continue. Thank you.
Barry Allen, followed by Norbert Stile.
Mr. Mayor, council, staff, and the nom de plume of Victoria Samos. I'm Barry Allen with Vanguard, and I want to talk about something that I think is very important. You're all familiar with it. You've seen the Pew study, you've seen the Kaiser Family Foundation study, and you've seen the NPR study. Trust in government is at its nadir, its lowest point. We no longer trust the ballot box. We no longer trust our leaders or our representatives. Our own City Council has worked diligently to displace our trust by assuring reduced public participation in the governmental process, by reducing time for public comment, by attempts at intimidation for obtaining public records, by making people feel guilty for exercising their rights, by distortions of the real numbers, by making up numbers and costs, issues that have no bearing on the Public Records Act, by ordering the police to remove a member of the public that chose to verbally challenge the chair, by pretending there are new policies that bear on First Amendment rights when in fact there are no new policies, by firing commissioners for speaking out on public issues, by having 4 other council members sit idly by, giving their tacit acquiescence and acceptance of these distortions. A council member accepting gifts of public funds from the police department, from the library, from the Glendale Water and Power. This does not even consider gifts from parties with business before the council. And yet, the 4 other council members sit idly by. A city attorney that gives his opinion there is no violation of FPP3 rules, but does not touch on the gift of public funds. A city ordinance that provides for censure for the violation of the public trust, but is considered only aspirational. Council members, the public is frustrated and confused. As elected official, the public rightfully holds you to higher standards. But you deny the public their aspirations, you deny their faith in government, you deny their beliefs and their trust. You are challenged to call a Beth-Den-like court, one knowledgeable in reestablishing governmental trust, to review these allegations against your fellow. It is your choice to redeem yourselves and start up the long road to rebuild public trust. Your failure to discuss these issues openly and publicly will follow you throughout your political career. Is there a wonder why there is a distrust in government? I'm Barry Allen for Vanguard. We stand for accountability. Shana Tova.
Robert Style, followed by Leti Angsuko.
For those who would like to get the Vanguard newsletter, here's the number to call.
Mr. Mayor, council, staff, I'm here, my name is Norbert Style, and I'm here to talk about the noise at Carr Park and the basketball court. I'm a basketball lover. I grew up on this basketball court, and I have been living next to the park, and I do have images of the park and my home and everything. And I've lived there for 28 years, and this is the first time in 28 years that I can actually not hear basketball bouncing. And I never realized in 28 years what I was missing. So I'm here along with my neighbors, Letty, I don't know if she's going to come back, to ask the council, the mayor and the council, if the basketball courts can be located elsewhere throughout the park, or it's currently under construction, and can you maybe decide not to erect the basketball court once again?
Which park are we talking about?
Carr Park?
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. I know we're taking note, we'll check into it.
Great.
I mean,
Let me, have
first we've
you
heard.
talked to Parks and Recreation?
They
About the
have,
matter?
but they told me the best thing to do is to present my
Come down
case.
here.
Exactly.
And here comes our Parks and Rec Director,
I haven't talked to this gentleman.
Yeah, well, we'll just follow up.
No.
Yeah, we'll
George.
follow up.
George Chapshian.
I'm not aware of other complaints of this nature.
No,
but-
this is the first we've heard this.
Okay.
We had a trip and fall issue, and we're removing the asphalt to redo the courts. That's why it's not being used right now. It was lifting, the asphalt was lifting, but
So you're
it's the
just
first I've
replacing
heard
the
of-
court? Just replacing the court?
yes, yeah,
A new finish?
right.
How long, approximately?
I'm not quite certain. We'll get that back
The
to you.
court's lighted, George?
I don't think so. Not car.
I think this is the gentleman who would like to know when you get an answer.
We'll,
Maybe you could,
we'll get more information. on it.
Artie, could you get his phone number and stuff?
Oh, George will do it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's going to put on the card.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's not going to be too long. That shouldn't take long. Okay, is Letty gone?
Yeah, she is.
We got the message. Thank you. Okay, that ends our communications. What is next, please?
Next is adoption of ordinance amending sections as listed on the agenda relating to miscellaneous cleanup amendments to subdivision and zoning code chapter offered on 9/12/06 by Councilmember Yusefian.
Mr. Yusefian,
I move the ordinance.
Second.
I move the ordinances.
it's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Councilmembers Menuchyan,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Yusefian,
Aye.
Mayor Weaver.
Aye. Next, please.
8 is action items, and at 8A is City Manager, Director of Public Works regarding sponsorship of Glendale's marketing activities and exclusive provision of all soda, juice, and snack requirements. At 8A1 is motion authorizing City Manager to execute an agreement with CC Vending.
Mayor,
You want to report or?
move 8A1.
Second.
I've got some questions.
Mr. Quintero? Were you briefed on this, Mr. Quintero, too?
Yeah.
Good.
One of my questions is, are we increasing the number of machines in different locations, or?
Yes, Councilmember Quintero, members of the City Council. We took a look at the entire city in terms of our facilities and some of our locations in terms of our parks. Right now, our vending machines are located in some areas and not located in other areas that are necessary. So definitely, we will be increasing the number of vending machines that we have.
Okay, in terms of the products being sold, in every machine, is there going to be an ability for a parent or whoever to just get water or the orange juice that they mentioned?
Absolutely, Councilmember Quintero. CC Vending, as well as Coca-Cola, have agreed to provide healthy choices, and by that, it's juices, bottled water, as well as some waters that have some flavors.
Flavored waters.
Flavored waters, yeah.
Okay, and in terms of the financial, how did we had a consultant that worked with us, but how did we arrive at, I guess what I'm asking, did we do enough research that this is a good deal financially, or?
We've been working on this for approximately a year and a half. The RFP went out in February of 2005, and we initially started working with the Active Network in 2004. And in terms of what we've seen initially in these types of contracts that have come forward for other cities and what cities are seeing come forward today, it's changed a little bit, and today's dollars aren't the same as 8 years ago. Some cities like Huntington Beach that received some monies 8 years ago, the market's changed a bit. So we believe, because of the initial RFPs that we received in terms of the bids, we weren't happy with the initial numbers, and we asked the Active Network to go back and renegotiate for us, and we've worked really hard at this, and we believe that it is the best deal that we can bring to the city.
Okay.
Okay, there's been a motion, a second. Roll call, please.
Council members Manukian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Yusefian,
Aye.
Mayor Weaver.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Yusefian.
I'd like to thank Yasmin Beer for sticking to this for about a year and a half. She's gone back and forth with all of us, giving us updates and working very diligently. Thank you, Yasmin.
Thank you. The next, please.
At 8B is Director of Parks, Recreation, and Community Services regarding negotiated agreement for the Cerritos School Park construction project at 3690 San Fernando Road, spec number 3173. At 8B1 is Resolution of Appropriation. At 8B2, motion authorizing the city manager to execute a construction contract with Valley Crest Landscape Development in the amount of $2,235,000.
Mr. Yusefian.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to move 8B1 and 2.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
I have a question.
Mr. Najarian.
I know we're moving along at a pretty good
Oh, no, I have to.
We'll use up your 10 minutes.
We got till midnight. We got till midnight.
Is
Yeah, use up your 10
Is this
minutes.
his second time? I'm trying to remember.
in a row.
We want these statements, immoralized, what do you call it?
The staff report indicates that these additional funds are going to be pulled from the pool project at Pacific Park.
We had, if I can clarify, Councilman Najarian, we had identified potential money that we could put into a pool project if and when time came, and those really were from park development funds that we had identified in 0506. There are still other funds that we identified that are still in that potential fund, but this would make up the $400,000 shortfall.
Mr. Starbird?
If I can add, because I raised this same question with George when I read the staff report, and the staff report indicates the pool project's on hold. A better way of saying that is the pool project has about 1/10 the amount of resources it would need to really build it. So it's going to be a while before we figure out how to fund a pool project. So in the meantime, this is a source of funding to make sure we construct this park the right way. That's not to mean we're not still pursuing a pool project. We are. It's just that we don't have the money to proceed with a specific project until we find a source of funds. So we have about 1/10 of what the pool would take.
I understand that, but I hate to see it be pulled from the meager pool fund, even though those funds are not anywhere close to getting us going on that. And I really think, as I've stated before, that a pool should be a priority, not just a pool, but an aquatic complex. And even our proposal at Pacific Park is on a much smaller scale than an aquatic complex. I'm not really happy about the grabbing of those previously earmarked funds.
All I can say, Mr. Najarian, is we're going to have to find a site. We're going to have to do a lot of studies on it, a lot of planning on it, acquisition of property, relocations of people, possibly, the design, the budgeting for construction, whatever. This is a multi-year project, and every year in the budget we can set money aside for this purpose. This one probably is considered premature at this time because we don't even really have a site for an aquatic center.
And we do,
I know what you're talking about. I remember the Verdugo Plunge, that was aquatic center.
Yeah. And in the overall scheme of things, $400,000 for a pool project is nominal, but I think we can make that up in later years, Councilman Najarian. But we didn't like pulling from it either, but we had to find some money for this.
Well,
you were talking about, this is money pulled from Pacific Park where we don't have to look for a location, we don't have to do the kind of things.
An aquatic center isn't going to be put in there. That's what we're going to talk about. There's not room for an aquatic center. A pool, yes, maybe, a small pool.
The Pacific Park pool is designed, is conceptualized as a 25-yard, 7-lane pool, not the aquatic complex that I think the city needs. However, nonetheless, we are still pulling it from a project that I think the city is sorely in need of.
Come budget time next year, we can put as many millions in there as we want at the price of something else. Yeah, it's priority.
If I may, I think part of that was also an exercise we did during the budget process. Mm-hmm. If we were going to find some money, this is where we could have pulled it from, and some money came. We identified Franklin elementary school site that we weren't going to do it anymore. I think we also identified the Spar Heights site, which we weren't going to do anymore. So it was kind of an exercise that we pulled together. The real money that we had for the project was $1.4 million from the state, grant money that we did get from the state, and then we tried to kind of fill in to see where we could, if it was a viable project.
So George, the $1.4 million still there?
It's still there.
Okay.
Is there a second?
I just want to let Mr. Najarian know he's spoken twice already, so
Yeah, he's out of it.
done on this. Okay. According to his own rules. I just wanted to let Mr. Najarian know that I do understand where he's coming from, and I do support his vision for the aquatic park and also for a pool in Pacific Edison. But I think we have a project right now. We broke ground on it. We got to get it done. But as we went through the study session, we had some money in our CIP, which we talked about possibly coming back and reprogramming that later. So we have not come back for that yet. So don't give up hope yet. I'll be there to support you on that pool. I really want that pool.
And as Mr. Starbird said, it's not on hold. We do have the consultant actually looking at potential sites, so we'll be coming back with a report on that.
Mr. Manukian.
Yeah, I have another issue other than the pool issue, and that is an issue that I inquired a while ago, and I was going to vote on this, and I will still support it, but I think it's important. We have the school district and the Armenian Youth Association of California over there, AYAC, who were using the parking lot jointly before we started this project. And I asked whether they would still be able to use that parking lot because for their purposes after hours and all of that. I was wondering what happened to that, and if I could get a report on that, I would appreciate it.
We'll do that because their intended use has been changing a bit over the last few years from what we had understood it to be, to the point that the use that, as they have defined it, could consume the parking lot even during hours that we need it for parks. So we'll give you a full report on that.
We did meet with the group.
Yeah.
Okay. My understanding was whatever they were doing before, they would continue the same hours or whatever, that they were sharing it with the school district, because the school district was using their parking lot as well, and they were using the school district's parking lot.
We'll give you a full report on it.
Okay.
Any other questions? Roll call, please.
This is on 8B1 and 2. Council members Manukian?
Yes.
Najarian?
No.
Quintero?
Yes.
Yusefian?
Aye.
Mayor Weaver?
Aye. Let's go to 9B.
9B is Director of Planning regarding proposed ordinance amending Title 30 of the Glendale Municipal Code 1995 relating to density bonus incentives, ZC number 2006-08 at 9B1. Motion continuing the hearing to October 17, 2006.
So I understand
9B1.
wait, I do not have to open the hearing and close the hearing to make the motion, right?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor, and this would be a continuance to October 17th without further public notice.
Mr. Yusefian has moved it. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Council members Manukian?
Yes.
Najarian?
Yes.
Quintero?
Yes.
Yusefian?
Aye.
Mayor Weaver?
Aye. Let's go back to 9A.
9A is also a hearing, Director of Planning regarding proposed ordinance amending Titles 9 and 30 of the Glendale Municipal Code and the South Brand Boulevard specific plan relating to outdoor grilling at commercial establishments. And 9A1 is ordinance for introduction permitting outdoor grilling.
Okay, this is an ordinance for introduction only. Okay? Not a vote. Okay, staff, Mr. Starbird? Will we go
Elaine, to you or to Tim for the introduction?
I would only pass it to Tim.
Okay.
He's the specialist
point.
in grilling.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council.
Mr. Mayor. I have
Hang
a
on,
question from Mr.
yes,
Foy.
second.
I had an ordinance in my packet,
Yes, sir.
and then this afternoon, there was another ordinance on my desk.
That's right.
What's the difference between those two?
The difference is just there are only two revisions, one of which is just an improved wording in a sentence, which doesn't change any meaning. That's on pages 35 and 36. The second revision is a clarification of how to measure distance from the grill to a residential area. And that's repeated numerous times, but it's the same language in every place.
Okay.
And the clarification is that instead of measuring from the every point on the commercial property to the nearest residential property, you would measure just from the grill to the residential property.
So you measure from the grill instead of the property line?
That's right.
Okay.
And just to clarify
Just one
that.
thing, is just on page 1, it says grills may not be used, instead of say used. There may not be used.
Oh, yes, okay.
It's just grammatical.
Okay, can we do the presentation before we?
And just further to the inquiry, the copy you got has highlighted.
It's highlighted.
The sections that have changed. We just didn't want to have the confusion of having pages handed out tonight.
Okay, let's do the report.
Thank you.
Subdue the lights, please.
Council's had a number of study sessions on this, 3, and the direction we got from council was that outdoor grilling should be legalized for a variety of facilities, that there should be no minimum distance from a residential zone, the grill should be on washable flooring and also durable and non-absorbent. We had the idea of that floor should be sloped to a drain connected to a grease trap, and that operators need to show proof that they have registered with the AQMD, that there be a 5-foot-high screen wall, at least on the sides from screening from public rights-of-way or residential areas.
Tim, I'm sorry, the previous slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Hours of operation requiring a conditional use permit, and all those regulations I just mentioned would apply only to grills larger than 10 square feet, cumulatively at the establishment.
I'm sorry, the previous slide, no minimum distance from residential zone or no maximum distance from residential zone?
No,
In other words, there must be a minimum distance.
no.
Okay, I'm just questioning
not
the word.
for-
I'm just
not for
questioning the
anything.
use of the word minimum. I think we know it.
No, there was no minimum distance at all.
Right, you were
Okay.
right.
Okay, then I wanted to speak about the Planning Commission review. The Planning Commission did vote to recommend against adoption of the ordinance, but then after they said that, they went and suggested a whole bunch of changes. So my feeling is that if they weren't opposed to it in principle, but they just wanted to suggest some changes. They wanted to put in some hours of operation requirement on the smaller grills.
Mr. Yusefian?
It is my understanding when items go to Planning Commission, generally Planning Commission has an opportunity to amend ordinance. So why didn't they amend an ordinance and approved an amended ordinance instead of just plain old voted against it?
Well, I think because some of the things that they were suggesting actually required further research. So at that time, it probably would not have been possible to really fully
Okay.
write an ordinance for
Because I
it.
saw that meeting and I was baffled by it because I watched other Planning Commission meetings, different people, even during hillsides or whatever, and Planning Commission took the opportunity to amend the ordinances, modify them, and so we saw an ordinance by the Planning Department, we saw an ordinance that was modified by Planning Commission, and that would be their recommendation. Instead, they just voted against it, said, we don't want to do this at all, but after the vote, they said, oh, by the way, I just thought if we did this and we did that and all that stuff, so.
Right. You did get the sense at the end that they might have voted for it. So this first suggestion of theirs is included in the proposed ordinance before you. And I think this was, I think that their thinking was that without a conditional use permit requirement for the smaller grills, this would at least give some sense of assurance to neighbors that impacts would be limited. The second one, if people were going to provide emissions controls over their outdoor grilling, then they would suggest removing the conditional use permit. Staff is not opposed to this idea. I just don't think it's very workable due to the costs of emission control systems.
Do you have another PowerPoint?
Oh, I do.
If you could pass it, please.
So what's what's on the ordinance? Could you tell me what's on the ordinance and what is not on the ordinance? These are not on the ordinance, right?
If it says, the ones that we've added to the ordinance have proposed an ordinance following them in italic.
Okay.
So it'd be on this page, the first and the third bullets.
Hours of operation for
Yeah.
grills smaller than 10 square feet, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and 5 to 8.
The whole purpose of that whole thing was to, I mean, it's
Right.
small.
Yeah, we didn't want anything
Yeah.
on there.
The last thing we want to do is,
And as I read the report, it says they wanted it to extend the time even more. So I'm confused about
Well,
that.
Yeah, there's another part where for grills which either are more than 200 feet from residential or are getting approval through a CUP, then they would consider extension of hours.
In terms of the 10 square feet, how do we go about enforcing that, or how does that work? I mean, they self-certify it's 10 square feet, and how does that work?
how do you enforce the hours?
Right, these hours would be difficult to enforce. I mean,
About the grill, though.
I mean, any hours are going to be enforced probably based on a complaint basis.
How about the grill itself, though? How do we go about?
If grills which are smaller than 10 square feet and they don't really have to register with us, then we would just have to trust them. And if the staff could go out and check it on a complaint basis.
You go measure.
And if we get a complaint, Sam will end up having somebody go out on a Saturday or a Sunday and
Measure
pay
it.
him a visit and measure it. And if they're using more than 10 square feet, they'll have to come in and comply with the ordinance.
Right.
Or reduce the amount of barbecuing. But, I mean, this, like many ordinances, does provide a real challenge to enforcement. A real challenge to enforcement.
But the second point is logical. I mean, if they're providing emission controls, then why would they need a CUP?
Right.
It is
that's
true.
reasonable.
But it didn't seem that feasible. We talked to someone from Cimarustis here who owned several Burger Kings, I think, in a Tony Roma's outlet, and they were able to give me some information about emissions control systems that they've used. There was one which it uses what's called electrostatic precipitation, where the smoke is electrically charged, and then as it goes up, there's a magnet which
Right.
pollutants adhere to.
Sharper and
It's a
air
scrubber.
cleaning system.
Right, it's scrubber. It's called a
They use it
scrubber.
in hospitals.
Right, and those, I mean, I've been told by the AQMD staff that those can cost up to $50,000.
Okay.
And I just wondered how many people were going to go for it at that level. Plus, then there's the issue of we would have to set up technical standards like, well, if you have a grill this big, you need a vent which, sucks in so many cubic feet per minute, and at least at this point, we don't have expertise on staff to do that.
But why are we even worried about that? Because the bottom line
AQMD
is
standards.
AQMD is the one who's going to go over there. It's going to check their emission control. It's going to have it operated. They're going to check it, and if it's within the passing parameters, it's going to tell them, your emission system works. You're fine. If it doesn't, tell them sorry, it does not work.
Right.
You need to modify it. And that's what the whole ordinance was based on. So we will take our responsibilities and give it to the governmental agency which is supposed to be checking for these type of things in the first place. They're collecting a whole bunch of money from the taxpayers to do this. Let them do it. I mean, especially in Southern California, AQMD, it's one of the toughest AQMDs in the nation. And so they are the ones who go out there and they check the stuff. And if some banquet facility is going to make $100,000 net profit every week, $50,000 is nothing.
Mr. Yusefian,
I did go over 10 minutes. I was checking.
but your colleagues
That's 10
would like
minutes total.
would like me to temper your
Total, not per.
would like you to
We didn't vote on this thing.
My colleagues would like me to temper your enthusiasm to speak.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Welcome.
Well,
See,
if I may
he's
just make
getting a breath of-
one more point on that, the AQMD normally would check that stuff after it's built and operating. And we would, at that point, if someone came in and said, we don't have to get a CUP because we're going to have an emission system, we wouldn't know whether that emission system is going to work or not until after it's built.
Mr. Manukian.
Unless we can talk to AQMD, see if they're willing to do.
If they have a
Yeah,
qualification paper from the AQMD, which they should be getting, that they are in compliance.
Yeah. I'm not.
Such thing?
I'm just not sure AQMD does that.
Mr. Garcia.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I think the process that the AQMD would follow is you go in, you register your grill, and they wouldn't impose any requirements that they get any sort of emission system until there was a complaint about either some violation of some other rules, such as fugitive dust, or it's operating as a nuisance. And then they may require them to get a electrostatic precipitator or some other sort of emission system. So they're not going to require it. So if somebody were to come in and say, well, theoretically, if somebody were to come in and say, I don't want to get a CUP because I'm going to get this other type of emission system, AQMD may or may not go out and look at it. What they may do is just say, get it's called a 222 permit, get that permit, and we're going to slap these conditions on you, and if we get a complaint, then we'll go out and take a look at it. So it won't be a situation where they're going to necessarily go out and take a look at it in the first instance to make sure it complies with any particular type of standard or level of service.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Yusefian.
How does Burger King and all of those restaurants that they charbroil their meat, how do they comply with some of the rules?
Offhand, I don't recall. I think there are different types of permits for different types of charbroiler units and different types of facilities. Like the type that, for example, Carl's Jr. uses is a chain-driven charbroiler, and that's subject to a specific regulation that AQMD has. Other types, like an open grill that's defined as a charbroiler but not a chain-driven charbroiler, wouldn't be under the same type of regulation. So again, they would just require this simple registration. It would only go out after a complaint is filed.
It's a little bit of a chicken and the egg.
Yeah. Well, shall we continue? Finish your presentation. You can quiz all night.
Okay, the third bullet.
Okay, you're on the third one. Go ahead.
Yes, the Planning Commission proposed that if a grill is more than 200 feet from a residential zone, that no CUP be required at all. Okay. That sounded reasonable to us, so we included that in the proposed ordinance.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Yusefian.
That's another thing. It's a superfluous item in the ordinance. Go through the zoning map. Show me places that you could be 200 feet away from a residential area.
There aren't that many, but there are some.
Where? In the CBD zone.
CBD
Only
zone.
CBD zone.
Places along San Fernando.
Maybe over in GC3.
And in the CBD zone,
Disney wanted to do it.
well, no, it's not, because in the CBD zone, we're starting to allow high rises. So all those high rises get built there. Those are all residential. Now you start putting that 200 feet away, you eliminated CBD zone. So all it's left is the San Fernando place. Maybe that lot, that junkyard we eliminated, we can lease it to go out there and put it. Then that will qualify for 200. I mean, this
This only relates to the residential zones, not the mixed-use zones. So if it was 200 feet from mixed-use building, there wouldn't be a CUP requirement.
If the mixed-use zone is a residential mixed use, would this apply?
No.
No. I want to hear this because this is very important.
No, yes.
So if in East Broadway, it's a IMUR or a CMUR, would this apply?
No, the ordinance is written for just the R1, ROS, R1R, and multifamily zones.
Just for those? Okay.
Just residential, not IMUR or CMUR?
Right, not the mixed-use zones, that's correct. Okay, then there was another suggestion. I'm sorry?
If I may
Mr.
follow up.
Manukian.
In a mixed-use zone, what is the setback requirements for a grill?
None.
None.
So they can put it against,
Well, they have to follow the fire code
I
requirements.
understand, but, okay.
All the other requirements except the CUP would apply.
Okay.
The last bullet, there was a suggestion that there should be a maximum size of a grill in proportion to the size of the facility.
Yes, that's really important, because I think a 10,000 square foot facility, I hope they don't have more than a 10,000 square foot grill. So we have to limit.
I'm worried
The
about
maximum
I'm worried about a
size.
5x5 grill. That's the.
Yeah, I think that's not, and I know it's not in the ordinance, I just.
You know
I
what?
just
That's one of those things I don't think you need to even put in there.
Well, we didn't,
It's
and
not.
basically, the conditional use permit process would enable the zoning administrator to put any additional conditions on if
Right.
she felt the grilling surface was unreasonable, and that would apply to people that
We
were
can have a
grilling
debate
for
all
off-site.
night about unreasonable grill sizes in terms of maximum size. 'Cause some people like the larger grills. But I know,
You're reaching your 10 minutes too.
I know.
Shall we move on?
But you're
then?
being funny, so I guess Mr.
Should
Mayor
we-
is going to allow that.
Should we move on then? Mr. Starbird first.
Well, do you want to give direction on these items, whether there are recommendations that have been included or recommendations that haven't, before we move on to the subsequent slides, or do you want to come back to them?
I think, if I may suggest, we need to get through the presentation, and
Yes.
then we might want to hear from the public. This is a public hearing, and then they might
Good
want to make
idea.
their, thank you.
Thank you. That's what I've been trying to do.
These are just questions for clarifications, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, they are?
That's it, yes.
Oh, we misunderstood. Okay. Move right along.
There was a suggestion that if some place is using their grills to prepare food for sale at another place, that alone should require a conditional use permit. And that's not in the proposed ordinance because it would have the same impacts as if people were eating it on site. So
Right.
we didn't see that distinction as being important. Limit grilling operations in proportion to the distance from a residential zone. This, I could see why someone would suggest that, but then when we went and looked at the actual regulations, it wasn't clear which ones that we would lift, that we would remove, such as hours of operation or screen walls, or they seemed equally important no matter where.
Pinocchio.
Just to clarify, these are, the ones that you don't have proposed in ordinance are not included in
That's
the
correct.
ordinance. Okay.
And then the last bullets came from a suggestion from a representative from the Banquet Hall Owners Association to allow later hours on weekends, or to allow later hours, period, was the request. What the Planning Commission recommended was allow later hours on Fridays through Sundays, I believe, or maybe Saturday, I think Sundays, when it's more than 200 feet from a residential zone, just as a right. Otherwise, if you're less than 200 feet from a residential zone, or if you want later hours at different times, that could be granted through the conditional use permit process. And this seemed reasonable to us, and we've included it in the proposed ordinance.
Go on.
Then this is probably our most troublesome issue. We had a regulation that, when we came to you in study session, that the permanent flooring should be sloped to a drain, which is connected to a grease trap, which is connected to the sewer system. After our study sessions with you, the issue came to light that might it might cause hazardous materials to go into the storm drain system, or that too much water going down there during a rainstorm could conceivably send stuff that should be going to the sewer into the storm drain system. So the fire department preferred regulation asking for a roof over the grilling area, which would keep rainwater out of this trap that's going to go to the sewer system. Putting a roof over it obviously is going to require some sort of hood then to allow the smoke to escape. Also, we're going to have some place for air to come in. It'll have to be designed for proper ventilation.
It'll have to go to design review board.
It never
ceases to amaze me.
It's never simple.
We took something very simple,
Right.
and they have made this so complicated. I think going to Mars is going to be easier.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone showing up at my house and inspecting my grill. That's number one.
You're not commercial.
Either way, I think the next step is
Do you have a roof?
regulating the grills at home. So
You don't have to do that.
One of the planning commissioners was familiar with school construction and knew of the system that the Los Angeles Unified School District uses. It's kind of a double, a drain with that's connected to both the rainstorm system as well as to the sewer system. And it actually can be turned on and off automatically with a hose that they use to clean their areas with.
Mr. Najarian.
Put a
Mr. Ford, let me interrupt you. We're talking about grease and drainage and all that. In the preparation of food and a barbecue, is there grease that is emitted onto the ground?
Yeah.
My understanding is that it's usually self-contained. It falls into the coals, and that's creating the smoke that we're talking about here. I'm not aware of any grease that's flowing down from the barbecue itself. And perhaps someone from the audience later, when it's oral communications, can address that, because I'm not sure that that's an issue.
Well, I think there could be some grease from cooking. One of the Public Works water quality guys went out with me today to a place in Burbank that has one of these kinds of systems because we wanted to see it. And there was a lot of grease underneath their pit. And it wasn't even where they clean it. They take it somewhere else to clean it. And there's also, the grease could enter the system just from cleaning the equipment as well.
Did it happen to be that old pit barbecue there by, where did you go in Burbank?
It's on Magnolia, almost at the southwest corner of Buena Vista, connected with a grocery store.
Anyway, if someone from the, if one of the professionals would just address that issue, go ahead. I didn't mean to stop you, but that's just
If
an
I
issue.
may make one more comment, Mr. Mayor. Cleaning the equipment is different than grease falling on the ground.
Yes.
Cleaning the equipment, regardless of how many drains you put in there, will not go in the drain because they clean it and either dump it or do something with it. It's not, they don't just clean it and throw it on the ground. I don't. So I don't assume anyone else does. So the grease that falls on the coals and the charcoal is not cleaned to the ground. So putting a drain in the ground isn't really going to do anything for that, for the equipment cleaning. Like you said, they might have to take it somewhere and clean it, as opposed to.
Mr. Starbird.
Remind me, maybe we went over this when the council gave the direction last time, but is the necessity of the durable, washable, non-porous, non-absorbent flooring, is that a health department requirement?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Although concrete and asphalt qualify.
Well, then why don't we just reference the health department standards? Why do we have to define all of this? I mean, it seemed to me the intent was to proceed to reference AQMD and health department.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we just reference those
I
things?
think Tim was acting as the conduit between other staff, and basically Fire and Public Works had concerns about state regulations and their regulations, and that's where some of this evolved. And we have people from the fire staff here tonight. I don't know if any of the Public Works staff are here, but the
director's here.
The concern was, and I have to tell you, when we contacted LAUSD, they were even concerned about washing off trays and the material from the trays getting into the storm system. So that's why they had this valve that could turn to go to the sewer system by just turning on the hose that they wash the trays off with. It automatically goes into the sewer system instead of the storm system. The storm system catches, like there's so much, and I'm sure Steve knows this better than anyone, the regulations for allowing foreign matter going into the storm system are so strict now, you can't have a cigarette butt go in. So you can imagine the concern if someone's equipment was malfunctioning in any way and allowing grease to go into the system. And I gather that some people barbecue in some ways and other people barbecue in other ways. My barbecue has a little tray that catches the grease at the bottom, but I'm barbecuing, 4 steaks. I'm not barbecuing for 10 hours or 5 hours and, 100 pounds of meat. So one can imagine there might be a spillage issue. And that's, I think, where this all evolved from. And so what we did in the end, rather than specify in the code exactly what all the alternatives were, we said that the fire chief could determine if an alternative was acceptable, because it seems to be the fire staff are the ones that are going to be doing most of the inspections on the construction of these areas through the CUP process. And these are all the ones in the CUP process. These things only apply to the ones in the CUP process, or any that are more than 10 square feet and exceeding the 200-foot radius. So everything more than 10 square feet would have this type of regulation on it, if this was passed by council.
Mayor.
Mr. Youssef.
I agree with the issue of the NPDS. I understand all the regulations that it's out there, and I can understand Public Works not wanting to have any grease going into the storm drain. Even though every time it rains in Southern California, the first rain, the amount of grease and oil and everything else just washes in there. It's just amazing. But nevertheless, we need to be cognizant of that, because every little bit counts. Now, on the issue of getting the grease into a grease trap through clearing that out and then putting it into the sewer line, I can also understand the concern that you don't want to flood the sewer lines. But the point is, we are talking about, if it rains, you may have a 10 by 10 area or 20 by 10 area that is going to put a little bit of water into the sewer line. You could mechanically close those drains. I mean, you don't have to have a fancy equipment to do that. You can mechanically close those drains. Well, no, there is a mechanical valve.
Okay.
So when you want to wash the place, you open it up, you wash it, it goes into the sewer line, you close it, and you're done. So this way, if it rains, it's not going to get into the sewer line, because I understand where they're coming from. They want to make sure you don't have excess water into the sewer lines, because if you put too much water into the sewer line, then, theoretically...
That's greasy water.
Well, no, it just could be regular water getting into the sewer line. Let's say it's Saturday morning, nobody's grilling, and all these drains are open, and it's pouring like cats and dogs. All that water is going to get into the sewer line. So what they're worried about is, theoretically, if you have too much water in the sewer line, you will overreach your capacity.
Right.
That I can understand. Now, there has to be an awful lot of grills around town before you could do that. But let's assume there is. But there's a way to solve that problem. You mechanically close it when you're done. When you want to wash it, you open it up, you clean it up, you close it, that's it.
And Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Yousefian is absolutely right, and we've tried to write this in such a way to give the fire chief that kind of discretion. It says the outdoor grilling area must be covered by a roof to prevent stormwater from entering the grease trap and sewer system unless an alternate system of stormwater diversion is approved by the fire chief. The roof must have sufficient vertical distance from the screening wall to allow for adequate ventilation to the satisfaction of the fire chief. Basically, we've given the fire chief a lot of discretion here to deal with this, and if someone provides some kind of mechanical system that he's satisfied with, then the staff will approve it.
Why don't we just do that and get it off their back, so they don't have to worry about what is in and what is not in? I understand
Because
two of
they
the inspectors
prefer
are
this.
here, and they understand what we're talking about. And one of these days, they're going to get old and gray and retire, and there'll be two new guys standing there, and they're going to say, what does this mean? I don't know what it means.
Well, the problem we had at staff level was they preferred to have the roof system. And so we wrote this to their preference. If you want to speak to them or make a decision, that this is planning trying to convey concerns of other departments in a way that gives some flexibility. Planning really doesn't have the ownership of this.
Mr. Manukian.
Yes, question. The issue with providing a roof area, it's so that when they're not using it, the water does not run through What if they just provide a cover instead of a roof area?
Could I ask you to ask the fire staff
Anyone
this?
who can answer, what if they provide a cover?
Wait. How about finishing the presentation?
It's
and then we
finished.
can go? Are you done?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the
Okay,
last
and you
issue.
want to do this before we hear from the public? We have a whole stack of cards.
That's a question I want answered, yeah.
Okay.
Clarification as
Please come
to
up.
whether it's a roof or what if they provide a cover for whatever they have? Because I've seen a number of them that it's
not-
usually covered.
It's not the cover of the grill, it's the cover of the open space.
It's about the water. That's what he's worried about.
Right, the water that is going to the grill and is going to the ground.
Goes into the sewer line.
Right, what if the grill is covered?
Then
There
it
are
all
covers
is-
for the grills.
Then it-
The grilling
Oh,
area
it's
is
the grilling area, because you got grease outside the grilling area.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, you're absolutely right. The issue is overwhelming the sewer system in the treatment plant with water during rain. And this is an issue throughout the city with all types of drains, whether it's drains from roofs or what have you. So we try to limit what goes actually into the sewer system that's treated. Typically how we, and as you pointed out as well, you're not allowed to take this grease that comes from the grills and wash it down into the sewer or storm drain system, so we need a way to collect that. There's a couple ways that it could be done, and that's what we were trying to allow in the ordinance. One, you can put a drain in that goes through a clarifier. With that, you need a way to prevent rainwater from going in, and that would be a roof. Another way that you might do it is you may have a grill that's 10 square feet and some kind of a trap in it, dispose of the grease properly, mop up and wash that out with inside your restaurant that you have that already goes through a clarifier. So there are a lot of ways that it actually can be dealt with properly. As Tim Foy pointed out as well, there are more advanced systems out there, mechanical systems that automatically switch with the use of the hose. So there are a variety of means, and I don't think that what we really want to dictate to the owners of the banquet halls this type of system that they have to have, but that they in fact keep that area clean and that they don't discharge the grease into the storm drain system, and that they don't overwhelm the sewer system. So we'll work with the owners and the best method to accomplish that based on their operations and the constraints that they have. And that's actually why we put that in there the way we did.
If there was a manual shut-off, not an automatic one. I'm familiar with the one that Burbank uses, by the way. They're not the only ones who use that. That's a pretty expensive device, and it's not too many people install those because there aren't too many contractors who are even familiar with that stuff. It's kind of tricky. But a manual device is very easy to operate. I've seen them require this from some restaurants in Pasadena because they were having problems. People were dumping stuff outside, and they had inspectors. And Pasadena has its own health department. We don't. We go by county, but their own health department was after their guys saying that you can't do that. And some restaurants will have a shut-off, and for the same exact reason. You only open it to run the water, you wash everything, it goes into the clarifier, the water goes out, grease trap catches all the stuff. When you're done, you shut it down, and you're done. And if it rains or whatever happens, after that, just surface water, it's clean water. And it can go into it goes down to the wash and goes on.
Sure. And actually, the preferred method as far as the fire department and public works is concerned is that we use the existing clarifier that's in the restaurant, save the owner money.
Run a pipe to it.
Run the grease and collect it right at the barbecue itself,
Right.
and simply mop up the area, have a non-pervious surface, and keep the area clean and discharge it inside the kitchen area, and not even get into any outside drainage. if we
So
got
your main concern is about the water issue. It's not that your main concern isn't that you have to have a roof because we want the roof on it.
No, it's mainly
Okay.
protection of the storm
It's
drain and
about
sewer
dealing
system.
with that. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
But, Mr. Howard.
In far less than 10 minutes. Following up on what Councilmember Yusefian said, Mr. Mayor, Since the ordinance reposes in the fire chief a lot of discretion to determine what appropriate methodology might be, method or system may be used at an individual location, the fire chief could, with the assistance of his staff, draft guidelines that could be available for these banquet hall owners without modifying the ordinance, since the ordinance already gives the fire chief discretion. Consistent with what Councilmember Yusefian has been saying, we could draft those guidelines noting whether it's the availability of a mechanical valve, the addition of a pipe to or a tube to the existing clarifier. All those can be put in written guidelines and be available to those owners who want to avail themselves of a
I'll tell you, within the
barbecue
next
service.
5 years, you're going to see those sophisticated systems. They will become more of the norm because more and more people are using it.
Okay. Well, shall we listen to the public? Okay, I'm going to try on 2 minutes. If you need more time, we'll go for it. John Wallace.
Open the public hearing.
Well, yes, thank you. I'll open the public hearing. First speaker, John Wallace, followed by Reg Sarkisian.
How long?
2 minutes, and if they need more, I'll...
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of City Council, Yusefian, Najarian, Manukian, and Quintero. By way of introduction, my name is John Wallace. I'm a resident of Glendale. My wife and I have lived in the same house for 50 years. And I'm a retired city employee after 33 years.
From Public Works?
Of service, and I'm a 43-year member of Masonic Lodge here in Glendale, which this year is celebrating its centennial along with the city, which is celebrating their centennial. I'm speaking about barbecues. I didn't know you were going to have a special session for barbecues, but that's what it's about. I was supposed to gasp when I said that. Last Saturday morning, our homeowners group had a breakfast at Glen Oaks Park. And we had about a 2.5 by 3.5 foot grill, cooked sausages and pancakes, no problems. We had a beautiful day. 2 Sundays ago, my Masonic Lodge had a steak barbecue at Casa Adobe. And we ran into some problems that we'd never had before, in that we didn't use the permanent barbecue area. We set up on the grass by the casa. And as I walked in, my wife and I, we remarked, what happened to the, why are we over there? And they said, someone said, our secretary said that someone in the city made a recommendation that we move away from that complex of condominium or apartment building. So it was on the lawn, which is no problem. We have our own barbecue facilities. We could cook 500 steaks if we wanted to. But I had a...
Come on, keep going.
I just got a few seconds.
Go ahead. I said I'd allow more.
I asked, what's the deal? Why are we doing this? Because there's a permanent fireplace and sinks and everything set up for barbecuing in the southeast corner. And they said, well, it was a recommendation or a condition put on by the city. So I guess my answer is, or my question is, why are the banquet halls allowed to cook outdoors in violation, as I understand it, of the rules or the regulations, while others are subjected to stricter requirements? And that's all I have. I thank you for the opportunity to discuss this with you.
Thank you. Okay.
I think the gentleman deserves an answer.
Yeah.
I don't know if staff has the answer right at hand.
Is the Parks...
Just wait.
He's not...
I don't know that we have the answer right now. We know Mr. Wallace. Staff, can we get him an answer tomorrow unless somebody has the answer right here now from staff?
I'll answer him.
You have the answer.
Yes. Whoever told you that you're not allowed to barbecue there was wrong. The city is doing nothing about residential barbecues. It's just commercial at this point. So you could have barbecued where the barbecue was already set up.
Mr. Starber, I'd still like you to check in to find out who told them.
Mr. Mayor,
no one's allowed to barbecue outdoors in the city at this point. If they are, they're doing it illegally.
Well, commercial barbecue.
Commercial.
Of which
I'm sorry,
Of which the
commercial.
barbecue at Casa Dobe is not commercial.
This is a special event
Yeah,
kind of a
I
thing.
can only surmise we might have had complaints from residents next door about barbecue smoke, so staff was probably encouraging people who bring their own to set up someplace else
Let's just
farther
check
away.
into it.
I would imagine.
They got the question,
But-
let's get them an answer.
But yeah, the prohibition is against commercial
Is
barbecue.
that okay, Mr.
Commercial
Wallace? You're
grilling.
raising your hand again. A what?
Mr. Mayor?
Well, wait, Mr. Yusefian. Okay, is it a quickie? Please, hurry up. Yeah,
Sorry.
you had your,
One year, a couple of years ago, we applied at Casa Dobe, and we were turned down by the city because of a complaint from that apartment complex or that condominium to the east
complaint about your grilling.
about the grilling, about the smoke. It was distasteful. We moved to Shoal Canyon. We did it there, but we kind of like Casa Dobe area, and that's why we reapplied this year.
We'll check into it.
Thank you.
Permit condition.
Okay, Reg Sarkisian, follow-up. Mr. Yusefian.
I'm sorry that you had to deal with that. Glendale Beautiful used to barbecue there almost every September. I used to cook the food. In one year, we had 2 barbecues, one from the city, which is more than 10 square feet, I must tell you, and another one we had to rent from Wanamaker Rent, which was at least 30 square feet. And on one we made the chickens, and the other one we made the steaks. And for years we've
Which
been
one
doing
was the
that.
steaks? Which one was the
Well,
chicken?
we're talking about special events, which is not the commercial that we're discussing here
Right, but
today.
why they're making him do that?
I
mean,
don't
there
know.
was a place there.
I
After
asked
what you guys
staff to
did.
check into it.
After what
Please,
you did.
please, well, let staff look into it. Let's move on. Reg, followed by Al Kassisian.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members. We have actually 4 other speakers on right after me.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Maybe, no, I mean, 4 of them that are from our association. Maybe if we, in lieu of them, if you can give me just a few extra minutes, that'd be great.
Say again.
We signed up for 4 other members
Yeah.
of our association to speak. If you'd let me speak a few extra minutes, I think we can get.
And cut them, or is that the idea?
Yeah, we can get. Yeah, we filled it out. So
Oh, yeah.
So
you want 5, 6 minutes, and they'll take less, or you're speaking
I'll
for
speak
them?
on their behalf if you give me the minutes. Yes, that's where
I'll
we're
take
at.
you up on that. It's a deal.
You got it.
6 minutes?
That's 8 minutes.
Can we say 8? It'll probably be 5, but just to be safe.
I'll say 8, and they're out.
Okay.
Crossing them out now.
Well, good evening, gentlemen. My name is Vrej Sarkisian. I am the president of the Restaurant and Banquet Owners Association. And as you know, we've been following all of the banquet issues from the beginning. Generally, we're in support of council passing an ordinance regarding outdoor grilling. I think it's an accurate reflection of what the vast majority of the residents of the city want, and will ultimately put to rest many of the issues that have come up in the past. Having said that, I think some adjustments have to be made to the proposed ordinance. What I would like to see is an ordinance with practical provisions that everyone can abide by. Specifically, there are 3 items that I'd like to address. And mind you, these items that I'm discussing come from the proposed ordinance as is, not from the discussions you had earlier today. The first one is the requirement for a conditional use permit for grills over 10 square feet. I really don't think we need a CUP for grills over 10 square feet. This limitation seems to be a bit arbitrary. And if we really think about the way the banquet process works, it may actually cause more problems when we minimize the size of these grills. And I'll give you an example. Say, for example, you come to we take your typical banquet event. We've got 300 people scheduled for that event. There's going to be a set number of cooking required for that event. No more, no less. Now, if we minimize or we set limitations on the size of the grill, what you're going to have is an extended period of time of grilling. So if you've got a 10-foot grill, you're probably going to, for 300 people, you're probably going to cook for 3 hours. If you've got a 30-foot grill, you're probably going to cook for an hour. And as a resident of this Glendale, I would much rather see a location grilling for a lot less period of time than for extended periods of time. because, visually it doesn't look good, for example. One might say it doesn't look good, or one might say, you know what, for hours and hours and hours they're grilling and they're always bothering us. That's a whole lot different than if you give us the tools to grill, get in there for half an hour, hour and a half, whatever it may take, grill it out and be done with it. And I don't see the need for a CUP to do that. The second one is the requirement of a CUP for grills located within 200 feet of residential. Many of the banquet facilities, as Councilmember Yusefian noted, are located well within 200 square feet. As such, it places many of these facilities to have to go through the disadvantage of the timely and costly CUP process. Furthermore, the 200 square foot rule was probably put in place to protect neighborhoods from smoke and smell. But 200 feet does not solve those problems. Once the smoke is in the air, factors like weather, wind, affect the direction of the smoke much more than any distance requirement would. Furthermore, in previous study sessions, as was also pointed out in the presentation, Council has addressed this issue before. Council has said that they don't want a minimum distance requirement. Finally, the third point that I'd like to address is on hours of operation. I was there at the Planning Commission meeting. Was that the plan? That was the planning, right? Okay. We were there, and this issue came up about the 9 o'clock. The 9 o'clock doesn't work for Fridays, Saturdays, or Sundays. Oftentimes, you have guests coming in to these weddings, to these baptisms, to these birthdays, and sometimes dinner is served well beyond 9 o'clock, maybe 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. Now, if we're trying to draft an ordinance that encompasses everything that's been going on and sort of codify it, these are the points that we should address. The hour. I don't want to, have you guys pass an ordinance at 9 o'clock when, in reality, people are grilling until 10, 10:30, maybe possibly 11. So these are our suggestions. Maybe you can incorporate them, and maybe come up ultimately with an ordinance that works. And finally, I'd like to point out that in the city's recent long-range planning report, banquets and outdoor grillings did not make the list. Items like traffic and housing topped the list and finished off with historic preservation and technology for public access. This tells us all that aside from a few voices frequenting council hearings, outdoor grilling really isn't an issue. Sizes of the grills, location of the grills, hours of operation really aren't an issue. As such, let's draft an ordinance that focuses on what the operators currently are engaged in. Let's codify it, and finally free up some time for council to focus on more important things in this great city of ours. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Under 8.
Mr. Sarkeesian, I've got a question. How about the concept of putting a roof over the grills? What do you think about that?
I think most of the grills already have some sort of cover on top. It's more to protect the grilling process from the elements like the sun or the rain or what have you. So I'm not quite sure. I really didn't follow on why we would want to erect a whole building or a 3-sided building. I don't know the reasons for that. I think what we have in place now seems to be working. I don't think we've had any fire issues throughout the many, many years in the many, many banquet facilities that have operated. People are concerned for the safety of their building as well and for the safety of their patrons. So I think systems have been in place now for many, many years that probably deal with all the concerns that fire has had.
Do some of your members, like Renaissance, do they grill indoors at Renaissance? Right?
I'm not sure about Renaissance specifically. I know some of our membership does grill indoors.
And what keeps all of your membership from wanting to grill indoors?
There's a tremendous cost cost relating to grilling indoors. Number one is the char broilers that allow you to grill indoors and use the inside hoods. I don't know, for 8 feet, when you can get a typical one built for outside for $500, you're talking the $15,000 range for an 8-foot grill. So I think it's cost prohibitive to begin with. And obviously, like we talked about last time, where I offered the field trip to the council, there's a big difference between grilling inside and grilling outdoors.
In terms of taste?
In terms of taste.
The grills inside, do they use charcoal as well?
Some of them are designed to use charcoal, yes.
The suggestion brought by the fire department in terms of keeping the area clean as opposed to covering it or keeping it clean and having a grease trap on the barbecue itself, does that sound reasonable? I mean, I'm sure everyone does that already. No one wants an area that is not clean.
Of course. I can tell you how we operate it. I can't speak for any other members because I haven't seen the operations themselves. The way we do it, we've basically all of the grease and all of the ashes are self-contained in the grill.
Right.
At the end of the evening, we put the cover on, sort of dies down, everything turns to dust. The following morning, we come in and we scoop it all up. We have like your traditional round metal barrel that we get from our grease trap company. We put all the ashes in there, cover it, and keep it covered. And twice a month, the grease company comes and takes it away. So issues of dirt, issues of grease really aren't an issue. You don't have grease flying all around the place. I'm sorry?
If you have grease on the ground when you're...
There really isn't grease. There might be some particles left over from the smoke that goes up, and maybe it catches to a metal piece or what have you. But it's not like your traditional skillet or whatever where you've got all this oil flying all around the place. That's really not the type of grilling that we do.
Mr. Najarian.
We were talking about the roof, and I'm seeing that the county health department requires protection from overhead contamination. Wouldn't that in and of itself require a roof?
I think that's what I said earlier. That we do have covers to protect us from the elements, and I think we're speaking about the same thing. Be it rain, be it excuse me for the statement, bird droppings, whatever. We've got the covers to protect us from that.
Do you get inspected? I mean, are you on a regular annual inspection with the
We
health
actually get inspected by the health department twice a year, at the very least. Plus, we are registered with AQMD for the char broiler, and we really haven't had any issues throughout the years regarding it.
Do you get graded?
Yes, we do.
As regular restaurants do.
So you got an A? We've always had an A. We might have had a B once when I was out of town. But other than that, we've had
You're
A's.
young.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next speaker, Margaret Hammond.
Okay, let him go. I'll ask him.
Good evening again, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and staff. Here we're back on this subject again, right? There's an ordinance on the books. It has been on the books for years, virtually outlawing commercial outdoor cooking. Now, the last 10 years, all these people have been doing it illegally. Should maybe they have been saving up some of the money that they were making and do it properly, have the things set up properly according to the AQMD requirements? On the other hand, you're saying grills under 10 feet. Does that mean 10 square feet? Or can they have a total of 3 10-foot grills? How would that work? In other words, what stops them from putting in whatever number of grills they want? The birds must have a ball. I mean, the roof would at least stop the birds from flying over and leaving their calling cards if they don't have any cover over them. And again, what about fire sprinklers in these establishments? And now we're turning our local problems, breaking our city laws, over to the state. Yet you object to the cable company the systems being controlled by the state. But here, when it suits you, you do it. When it doesn't suit you, you don't. And I would say that the business of the storm drains, absolutely, the city has got to be on their toes because you're going to be looking at thousands of dollars in fines. And the city is going to have to absolutely make sure, not just perhaps on these kind of businesses, but on anywhere, that what goes into the storm drains are not going to be going to the ocean and that the city will be fined for it. And then here we are. We have an illegal business, a business that's barbecuing illegally all these years, and they're setting their own rules. They're telling the city council what they want. And I don't think that's the way it should be. I think the city council and the city should be run for all of the residents in the city and not just a few people that have been breaking the rules all along. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Ellen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council, staff, and the public. I'm Barry Allen with Vanguard. Just a couple of things. One of the things that Ms. Hammond just mentioned was the grills, and I see that 10 square feet is the number. But what if somebody puts in three 3x3 grills? It's only 9 square feet per grill, so will they have to be registered or not? Is there a definition of grills in the ordinance that covers daisy chaining or the acquiring of multiple grills? Now, there was another issue that I noted, and I certainly understand the fire department weighing in on the initial inspections, but will neighborhood services still be providing the inspections, or will it be the fire suppression teams that will be doing the inspections, especially at night? I think that's something that needs to be addressed. Who's going to be doing the inspections, and will it add up to additional overtime if it's going to be the suppression teams? Some of the things that I didn't see addressed in the materials. Thank you. I'm Barry Yaman for Vanguard.
Ray Galloway.
Mr. Mayor, council members, staff, I'm Ray Galloway, a citizen of Glendale. I have a solution to Mr. Yusefian's problem about this can of worms that we opened with the ordinance. Let's not have it. Seems to me that would simplify the whole problem. Margaret Hammond has stolen a lot of my thunder here, but nonetheless, let me have my say. Outdoor grilling is illegal, as I understand it at the moment, but it's happening at many locations. And I've always felt, it seems to me axiomatic, that if a rule is being broken, you either change the rule or you legalize it, one or the other. I seem to remember not so long ago when a similar situation was solved by enforcing the existing rule. We all remember that one. And the predictably disastrous results that occurred. This time, I think we need to change the rule. I think the rule should be abided by and not changed. It was the wrong thing with the fence ordinance, and it's the right thing to do with this situation. 10 by 10, isn't that about the size of a baby grand? I don't know where we go beyond that to the size of a basketball court. I'm not sure. Would there be any criteria for refusing to allow a CUP? I doubt it. I know it's more costly to do grilling inside, but seat belts are costly. Airbags are costly. Let's enforce the rule. Let's not change it.
I know a seatbelt's $300. After my dog chewed a few up, I found out.
And how many square feet is 10 by 10, Mr. Mayor?
That's 100 square feet, and we're talking about 10 square feet. 2 by 5. 3 by 3 by and a quarter by 3 and a quarter or something.
And just for the record, a 2 by 5 outdoor barbecue grill was being sold at Spartan Final a few weeks ago.
Did you buy one?
No, I have a bigger one.
There's an honest man. Okay, I have no more cards. I'll close the
Not
public.
enough.
Like Harry, remember, this is an ordinance for introduction only.
Mr. Mayor, if I could clarify a couple of questions that were asked quickly one time and get it
Certainly.
over with. The ordinance very specifically says that the threshold is 10 square feet in area measured cumulatively for all outdoor grilling, heating, or smoking equipment on the property. So that means an area that would be 2 by 5 would be the threshold. And if you had 2,
One per location, basically.
if you had 2, you would exceed it, and you would be basically then subject to the greater than 10 square feet. The measure is cumulatively for all types of grilling, heating, or smoking equipment. The other point I wanted to clarify is that the reason staff incorporated the provisions for the 10 square feet or less than 10 square feet in cumulative area was very specifically, presently grilling is illegal. If you do not put any restrictions on things less than 10 square feet, basically you make the use, a legal use, and subsequent changes would, if you decided you needed subsequent changes, would not be retroactive, and those operations would be allowed to continue. As Mr. Sarkisian said, the problem is that the 10 square feet is arbitrary, so people who presently have 12 square feet or whatever might be inclined to go to less than 10 square feet so as to avoid this conditional use permit requirement and then cook for longer periods of time. And I heard the members of council saying that we were talking about over the lunch period and dinner time, and that's where the 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. came from, because the types of operations we were thinking of, that council, I think, was thinking of, would be the place that would be barbecuing hamburgers at lunch or over dinner, and would be a typical small barbecue and would not be great in size. So as to alleviate the potential of people misusing the threshold, the arbitrary threshold, and creating 9.9 square foot sizes and cooking for 10 hours to avoid a CUP, to stay legal, we thought that at least this level of restriction should be incorporated. As the report says, AQMD registration is required for all commercial grilling in any case. We didn't even subject that in our regulation because we wouldn't, for less than 10 square feet, we wouldn't have any permit or process. You would just do it and be permitted. And if there was a complaint, we'd go out and verify that you didn't exceed the 10 square feet. And so we didn't feel it necessary to add anything else, but if you felt the additional restrictions, such as the AQMD or the porous washable floors or being permanently affixed, or any of those things were necessary, we could add that. But otherwise, AQMD and the county health would be responsible, and it would be delegated to them. At least the restriction in hours, staff recommends, as a means to ensure that people do not try to misuse this ordinance when you make grilling legal.
Well,
Mr. Howard first, better get a legal opinion.
Let's get a legal opinion.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I have a different perspective, and perhaps it was just a use of a term that causes me some consternation. That's the term arbitrary when you're dealing with the size of the grills. When you're passing ordinances, even if it's based on the exercise, it's not based on some constitutionally protected right, it's just based on the need to protect the public health, safety, and welfare. Your ordinances can't be arbitrary. You need to have a rational basis for the regulation that you put in place. I went and looked at staff's chart. I'm not sure I agree with the planning director that a 10 square foot threshold is arbitrary. And again, perhaps it was just the way she used the term in coming up with a figure. But if you truly feel it's arbitrary, then I would suggest that you come up with a different figure, because you do not want to adopt an ordinance that has no rational basis. You just want to have some basis and reason for what you're doing. And if that threshold is believed to be arbitrary, then perhaps it's the wrong threshold.
And, Mr. Mayor, then I've used the term incorrectly. I was using that as, and perhaps my English should be different, but it's a threshold. And 0.1 square feet smaller does not reach that threshold.
You were speaking Canadian.
And it was probably Canadian. But it's very difficult in codes not to have a limit that's specific and firm, and so we have to have some firm point. And the reason we chose 10, or you chose 10 actually, was because of the existing inventory. You chose that number.
And that, if you check, page 4 of the staff report does reflect that there are at least 3 out of the 8 that have grills that are 10 square feet or less. So in my view, there is a rational basis for that number. However, when I heard the word arbitrary stated a couple of times, I wanted to make sure on the record that this council wasn't thinking they were going down the path of choosing an arbitrary number. I don't believe it is from the staff report that you have.
I now have to correct the city attorney. Only one is 10 square feet. That's Annie. All the others have multiples of the grill size.
I think Cafe Armitage is 5.8 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, excuse me.
It's not a banquet hall.
That is
That's
the one,
a restaurant.
and it's a restaurant.
Well,
but still, there's only one that's less than 10 square feet, and that's the cafe. I'm sorry, I read the wrong name, but there is only one that's smaller in the inventory, and we did a very limited inventory. We didn't go out and check every restaurant in the city, but these were the ones we knew of, and I know that Neighborhood Services provided us the locations. So I think the staff were just raising this change, and we want you to be clear why we agreed to that change on the 10 square feet.
Mr. Manutian and Mr. Najarian.
I just want to.
Introduce the ordinance?
No, I don't want to introduce the ordinance. There's, the issue of the 10 square feet was to exempt small barbecues from government regulations. The hours of operations, I don't know who's going to run around and see whether they're cooking at 2:05 or 2:10. The whole point, the whole intent was, when that was suggested, don't worry about the small things. We'll deal with the larger barbecues, which we should be dealing with. Right now we spend about 15 minutes on the 10 square feet. We spend hours on this thing. I don't want to go back and start regulating smaller barbecues again. That's not what we're here for. The smaller barbecues should be exempted, and we came up with 10 square feet based on our personal experiences and some of the things that we've seen.
Closed.
I think most of the banquet halls use much, much larger than 10 square feet barbecues. I don't think any of them will be able to operate with a 10 square feet barbecue. And for me, that was a threshold. In terms of operations, they can't operate with 10 square feet, and no one's going to be cooking from 4 to 10 hours. There's a certain amount of time that they have to cook and finish and serve the food for banquet halls anyways. And most of the restaurants, without us regulating from 11 to 2 a.m., 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., if they don't have any customers between 2 and 6, they're not going to be cooking anyway. So I don't see us continuing this thing with 10 square. I don't even want to talk about it. I think we should exempt anything smaller than 10 square feet and move on to the much more important issue of regulating barbecues, because city is changing, the different tastes of the community is changing, and some community members prefer certain foods prepared in a certain way. We have to deal with it at this point, and to deal with it, instead of having these individuals operating their barbecues illegally, I think we should have something on the books that they can follow and operate it in a safe manner, away from residential buildings, so they're not a nuisance to residential buildings, and go from there. Let's be done with this 10 square feet thing. And,
Mr. Najarian?
I just have a few comments. Number one, I'm quite confident that in the years to come, the government and regulatory agencies will prohibit any sort of commercial outdoor cooking. The trend is to crack down on any sort of pollutant-generating sources, and I'm afraid, I'm hoping that in a short while that this entire discussion is going to be moot. I mean, they're getting very strict on leaf blowers, on even the use of the type of ignition device that you can use on an outdoor home barbecue. So I think at some point, especially in Southern California, as we continue to have air quality problems, that there is going to be a crackdown on commercial cooking. My second comment is really a question. How do we deal with the folks that, for instance, the Montrose Harvest Market, the guy, Maui Chicken or somebody, rolls in this huge old, it's about the size of a trailer. That's got to be at least 100 square feet. It's 10 by 10, and lights the fire, and he's grilling all day. How do we do that? Does he have a permit for that?
I'm not sure
Would
what he
he
has
would he
now, but he
require a
would
permit?
require a CUP, because that's illegal. It's not permitted, and we haven't been enforcing.
it's illegal now.
Yes. All outdoor grilling is illegal now.
Commercial outdoor.
Commercial outdoor, excuse me. Commercial outdoor grilling.
But special event is different, correct?
The code doesn't differentiate.
Unity Fest. I mean, there's probably going to be some outdoor.
There's going to be grilling there. There was grilling probably at
Every year?
But
at the Rose
remember,
thing.
it's commercial.
That's
And it's
commercial.
ready to
Oh,
commercial.
it's commercial. They're selling. They're making money.
No.
Well-
Ours wasn't sold.
I think
talking about yours, but these
there's
other
a-
examples.
there is a bit of a difference. The other thing is, this applies in commercial, industrial, mixed-use zones. I'm not sure, Tim, does it apply in a residential zone?
RS zone.
No, no. And the larger question, if the city attorney is amenable, we could perhaps include some exemption from things which get a type of special event permit from the city clerk's
A
office.
special event is different than one
But
is
if,
doing.
but if it's being done in connection with a special event.
Yeah, well, the farmer's market's an every week kind of thing. That's 52
more
times
regular.
a year, and maybe.
But a Unity Fest or something is
And
not.
what's the difference between that and a banquet facility?
Yeah, that's my point on this. I mean, we
That's
have
why
to be
we put it all
even-handed.
I think you're right,
When we
Councilmember
apply this and when
Najarian.
we set the
It would
regulations, so we
be
need to
applied.
keep all these other uses, not just the banquet hall,
It
in the
applies equally.
center district in
You're right.
mind. And
Anything
how-
in commercial, mixed use, and industrial zoning. That's what we're applying this to. And that area is zoned commercial on both sides of the street, and my opinion would be it would apply. Now, I don't know if they get a permit from you to do that in the street.
And it's not covered. There's no awning over it.
Oh,
So in
there's
terms of
nothing.
overhead protection, when you talk about offending sources, that probably violates it on 5 different levels. So when we set these rules, we need to keep that in mind. It's not just the banquet halls
The
that are
only
going to
thing
be
is,
affected.
it's in the street, and it's given a permit by Public Works, so I'm not sure it's going to apply the same way, because the code, the way we interpret it, is that the street is the jurisdiction of the Public Works Director. The zoning doesn't apply.
Oh, stop that.
Oh, so
So-
blame him for it, huh?
So maybe we're going to have to
Steve, you're in trouble.
follow up on that in relation to his
you-
permitting in the street.
they
Well,
also-
they're right in the street. It's not
Yes,
on the
they're right in
private
street.
property.
And my point is, let's keep in mind these other barbecue uses that can generate as much, if not more, smoke than some of the other traditional barbecues that we're thinking of as we move forward in this
Yeah,
process.
like the health fair, pancake breakfast. Want to name a few more?
The cities.
We put on?
When Jim goes out there and cooks those big pieces of meat.
That's
what are
right.
they called?
Right in the
Tri-tips.
courtyard.
It's not commercial.
I think it is.
No charge, free.
Special event?
These mobile barbecues are also regulated by the county health
How
department.
about the Kiwanis Jewel City van when they get out there? And
They're regulated by the health department as well. That's why they have a wash station.
But they would then be regulated by us. I mean, if
If
you're going to
they're-
impose all
if-
regulations on
right.
top of the health department.
But can
There
I
are
just
a lot
clarify
of-
this?
Yeah, here.
If they're on the street, Mr. City Attorney, I don't think the zoning will apply and the CUP requirement will apply if that they're only located in the street.
We're playing guessing games here and we don't know.
Let me ask a question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
In response.
Yes.
So if the banquet hall owners take their barbecues out in the street, they're okay.
Put it on sidewalk.
They
Yeah.
have to get a permit from the Public Works
Well,
Director.
they'll get a permit from the Public Works, and that's fine. They'll
That's
get
just what Mr.
Mr.
Zern
Mr.
wants.
Mr. Mayor.
For
The point
10
is there
Mr.
should
Mayor.
be some clarification.
Can I
Mr.
suggest
Starbird.
you toss that issue back to staff
Why not?
and come back and talk about
We're not
commercial
going to solve
banquet
it
hall
here.
standards?
And
Because we'll obviously need to address how those are going to work.
now to get onto
on the
a different
regulations.
thing, I'm opening the public hearing again.
Oh, okay.
Because I want this person. Rose from the Ethnic Advisory Council, the AQMD.
Ah,
very
good.
Yeah, see, I thought you'd like that.
An AQMD
Rose, say the
person.
rest of your name. I don't want
Right.
to
My name is Rose Montoya Lona,
Okay.
and for many years now, I've been on an ethnic advisory council with the AQMD, and so I am a conduit between the community and the AQMD. I'm not affiliated with them. I don't work for them. So I take our problems to them, and I give their information to you. So I made a call earlier today to the AQMD, and it is correct that the AQMD does not regulate barbecues. They do require registration, as somebody mentioned earlier. However, if they do violate nuisance laws, the AQMD will intervene. And that would incorporate effects on children, senior citizens, people with health problems that are affected by the smoke. So that is their concern. It is the health aspect as well as the air quality, of course. So any individual, the main reason I came is because I want to inform the public that any individual can place a formal complaint with the AQMD regarding excessive smoke. If it is affecting their family, there's a lot of asthmatics out there. There's a lot of people with immune problems, not just the seniors. So if people are being affected, or even if it is just a nuisance, period, they can call the AQMD regarding this issue. They can make a formal complaint by calling 1-800-CUT-SMOG. So that is the phone number that I'm giving to the public right now. If there's a problem now, problem in the future, whatever you decide, that is the number for anybody to call, 1-800-CUT-SMOG, if it is affecting them in any way. And at that point, the AQMD will send an inspector out to monitor that the barbecue. Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, I'll close. Thank you. I'll close the public hearing again. And where do you want to pick it up?
Mr. Mayor, I think let's get down to the ordinance. I need to have a slide back or something of that nature, so I'll know exactly what's in the ordinance. So if I need to introduce the ordinance, we can introduce an ordinance, whether it be modified, eliminated, or whatever. Tell me what's in the ordinance.
Okay. We did
This
include.
page one?
Proposed in ordinance.
Okay. Hours of operation, I want that out of the ordinance.
Right.
For smaller grills.
Right, for
Right.
that. No CUP if emission control is provided, that's fine. No CUP if
Mr.
more
Mayor,
than...
Mr. Yusefian, the prior slide also has some information in terms of hours of operation.
Okay, is that the prior?
Yeah.
Which one is this? Is it the
This
first
one.
one? No, that's page 2 of 2.
Yeah, this one is for the larger grills. We're not talking about the smaller grills.
Well, I want to deal,
Let's take it from the top.
what's in the ordinance?
Wait, time out. Mr. Seven, you're giving your opinion. You're saying aye.
I want to know what is on the
Majority-
ordinance.
I want to see the majority of this council say
The
they
ordinance,
want
if you
this
turn
or
to
that.
page 40,
Actually, I'd like to see the ordinance as well. From
turn
the
to page
beginning as
40.
acceptance.
Okay, page 40.
says, number 6, these are the regulations that apply.
Okay, where are we starting again?
Page 40 in the ordinance. If I
Page
can,
40 here.
yes, page 40 in the
Okay.
ordinance.
Okay.
And these regulations, they actually just begin on page 39, but it's just one line. It basically, these are the standards that apply to outdoor grilling,
I got one.
and they apply to everything that's 10 square feet or more,
I got it. Somebody else.
cumulatively measured
This
for
is
all
10
outdoor
10 square
grilling,
feet or
or
more?
more. Numbers 1 through 6.
What is 10 square feet and less?
Only B.
Where are you again? I'm sorry.
10 square
Page
feet and
40,
less.
B.
Okay.
10 square feet or less are permitted as of right. The only restriction that we're
Okay.
proposing as staff are the hours.
Okay.
So
I don't,
they're permitted as of right except for hours.
right, and I don't, it's as of right is okay, I don't want any hours on there.
Is there a
And I
majority?
have the same reason with the hours. You cannot use a 10 square foot grill for commercial purposes for a long period of time.
Okay, what I want to know is the rest of the council want to take the hours out?
Well, I have a question there. How about when a banquet hall also provides for catering? That can be a situation where you're grilling not just for your purposes that evening, but also for catering operations.
correct.
So how do we...
And the reason we put the hours on was because we felt that we're talking about uses when they're less than 10 that don't normally use them at extensive periods for catering or for banquets very late at night. The provision in the code is that you have to get a CUP if you extend hours. So the catering business or someone that was grilling at night with 10 square feet from 6 till 10 o'clock would have to get a CUP. If they worked within these hours, and if these hours aren't quite right, you can adjust the hours. This is just a staff proposal because We heard what some of the members said previously. We just wanted to avoid misuse for things that we haven't anticipated a problem for, because today all of the outdoor grilling is illegal. This would make anything less than 10 square feet automatically legal with no restrictions, except we propose the hours just to make sure it wouldn't be misused.
Do you want the hours in or out? Mr. Seppian wants them out. What about this? Mr. Menuchyan?
Two things. I would like the ordinance to say 10 square feet or less, not less than 10 square feet. First. And second, I would like to see the hours out because, again, we're talking about small barbecues. If I'm allowed to cook for 10 hours in my backyard, so should someone else. And that's the logic behind that. Because my barbecue is larger and I can cook all day if I want to in a neighborhood, in a residential area. These are not residential areas. They're commercial areas mostly. So.
Okay, does somebody else want the hours out?
No, I think I'd like the hours in. Although
Like the hours in.
I think 8 p.m. is too early. I mean, I think it can go beyond 8.
Well, originally, we said 10 to 9 on there.
10 to
But
9
the council
applies to the
direction,
larger.
It says previous council direction,
Right.
hours, 10 a.m. to 9
9
p.m.
Right.
That's what we all agreed on.
That was
with
with no
exception of
restriction
Mr.
on the smaller ones.
Mr.
though,
Menuchyan.
or no hours
I
proposed. for
went
the
to a
smaller ones.
lunch today, and they are open from 11:30 to 4 p.m. They're not open for dinner. How do they deal with this, with 11 to 2?
The only way we had thought of handling it would be that they'd get a CUP for different hours. We
Spent
We are not married to these
$1,750,
hours.
Another
We only
staff
wanted
time
some
for 10
restriction.
square foot.
Who's going to monitor it?
And exactly, who's
It's
going to monitor?
based on
it?
complaints. That's the way we monitor
Somebody's going to
everything.
call it 2:10 and say they still got the barbecue going 2:10 in the afternoon.
Right.
I just can't, it seems unenforceable.
If you're going to put hours, put 10 a.m. to 9 p.m., that's actually more reasonable. That's why
10
we
a.m.
went.
to 10 p.m.
The reason I say is more people will be home at the early hour and the later hour to complain. That's who you're trying to satisfy. Middle day, 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock, people will be out working. They're not going to be around, so not likely to get the complaints that you'll get if you have the range from an earlier to a later. People are home and they're looking out the window at 8 o'clock at night.
So is there a consensus?
I mean, that's just, I'm just
Mr.
trying
Mayor?
to think logically on it.
And staff, we're
I don't
just
care, I
trying to
asked.
propose something as a starting point. Anything that you think is appropriate, you know the business better than we do. We were just trying to reflect.
No, I don't know the business better than
This is
you.
not
You
about
you
the
ate lunch
business.
till 4:30, so.
Want the
No,
Okay,
I
there's
just
two-
said, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to clarify. I said I went to a lunch restaurant who said they were open from 11:30 to 4:30. I did not say I eat lunch at 4 or 4:30.
I'm sorry,
Let's
didn't mean
not,
it that way.
you know, I understand there's a lot of humor in this, and I see the humor. But here we are again talking for the last 45 minutes for grills 10 square feet or less. I suggested that we move on and we forget, because that was the intent of 10 square feet or less, and I have the Director of Planning requesting that the community requests or applies for CUPs for the hours of operation for a 10 square foot barbecue. This is ludicrous. I'm sorry. I'm getting really upset. My barbecue is larger than 10 square feet. If I'm allowed to cook for 10 hours, so should someone else. Let's get on with the business of regulating the large barbecues, which are the nuisances.
And what do we charge for a CUP? $1,700?
We have not
Oh,
moved.
we just raised it too.
We have not moved past square one. So can we try to get past square one? What do you want to do about,
$1,562
$1,560.
presently.
what do you want to do on B on page 40? What's the majority want to do?
I like to go to 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. These are small barbecues.
Understood all that. What do you want? Out? Different hours? What?
my suggestion is to exempt smaller barbecues, and that's what
And take the
was-
hours, everything out.
Just take the
that
hours
was-
out?
Yeah, that was what was suggested. That's what we all, the majority said last time, and that's what we suggested. And now we're coming back with
That's what we
suggestions
went
from the
for
planning
10.
commission.
That's what we went with 10.
Right. 10 or less, it's exempt. Let's deal with the larger
So
issues.
you take off the last line.
Right.
Because I'd hate to see someone come and say, my barbecue is 9.99 square feet, so let's just do 10 square feet or less.
10 square feet or less, and end it after the
That's
word
it.
property.
Yes.
The
And let's move
majority
on
of-
to the big ones.
Just a second, Mr. Byrd, I just want to find out,
I'm
did the
just letting you
majority,
know I'd like to speak when you have a minute.
yeah, did the majority agree on that?
Do we have to agree right now on it?
Well, we're
Or
going
this
through.
is just to put it in the
Mr.
ordinance,
Yusefian
'cause I
has
need to
said.
think about that.
Mr. Yusefian has said what he wants in the ordinance, and they're taking notes. I'm looking for the majority saying they want it in. If you're not ready to do that, then let's give direction to staff, send it back with what we want them to do, and let them bring it back a different time. I mean, we can't have any one of us sitting up here deciding what the ordinance is going to be, because you're going to have to vote on it.
I want the
Mr.
time.
Starbird wanted to say something when he gets a chance.
I want the time in, and 10
What's the
to
time
9.
in?
10 to 9 is reasonable for me.
Mr. Starbird.
Just an observation, I think somewhat supportive of Mr. Manukian's direction. As the young lady pointed out from the AQMD, irrespective of what we do here, regardless of size, outdoor commercial grilling is subject to the AQMD regulations. Irrespective of what we say here, they're supposed to register with the AQMD. And if there's a public nuisance or a health issue, the AQMD has the ability.
Not only the AQMD, but we also have the ability
I'm just
here.
pointing out, though, even if you don't have hours of operation on smaller grills, even if you don't regulate them, if it poses a nuisance, AQMD can, or subsequently we
can as well.
I'm just pointing out, it's not as if you don't have a recourse or people will not be protected. There is a mechanism.
So you could be barbecuing at 6 p.m. and somebody calls AQMD, they show up,
Yes.
they could shut you down.
They could be in complete compliance
If they
with
found
our
it
ordinance,
was
and if AQMD
nuisance.
found there was
A
a public
nuisance.
nuisance or a health issue, they could still shut them down, require additional conditions, what have you.
Which
Well,
makes,
it might not.
But you don't need to put the hours in then.
right, that's what makes sense. Makes it easier.
Does that, you buy that, Mr. Quintero? He does
No.
not buy it. So I see two, and one wants to talk about it more, so we haven't got a consensus. So
What do
what
you
do we
wanna
do
do,
on
Mr.
the
Mayor?
first statement? I don't care. I mean, I can see the logic of just leaving it out, but
What
it
do you
takes
think?
4 to do anything.
We're giving direction to staff to draft the final ordinance. And
I want to introduce the
And
ordinance.
we anticipated you'd be introducing
I'm
something
going to
tonight.
introduce the ordinance. I just want to know what you guys want so I can introduce the ordinance.
modifications may be made at the subsequent meeting.
You can still make that.
As long as it's germane to the original ordinance, yes, we can
If we're
modify.
talking about hours,
That's germane.
that's a germane.
Yes.
For purposes of moving it forward, I will agree with removing the hours of operation for the under 10 or under square foot grilling.
Okay. Now,
But I reserve my right to
Right.
change my mind.
now, can we introduce the ordinances one section at a time? I mean, can we introduce an ordinance for less than 10? Or this, the way
All
it's
you have to
written?
do is tell us the changes you want us to incorporate between today and next week and
Okay.
introduce it, and we'll ensure
Okay.
that it comes
You
forward
got
that
the
way.
direction on
So
what?
this is.
But,
Mr.
Mr. Mayor, there was one point that Mr. Manukian raised about 10 square feet or less, and I wasn't sure if
10 square feet or less,
Right.
rather than less
everyone,
than
whether
10
four
square
nods.
feet.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
That's what I
Just
got.
changing the wordage. Okay, we're past number 1. What's next?
God, I guess we're here till midnight.
Hours
Well,
of
this
operation.
rate we're going.
Conditional use only required all regulation applies to all grills larger than 10 feet.
If everything else is okay, then we can just have the
Okay.
ordinance introduced.
What is in for the other ones? So if they are going for a CUP, what is required?
It's the Part A, 1 through 6, would apply to everything,
Including the 10?
even if they didn't require a CUP, because we don't require a CUP where it's more than 200 feet from a residential zone. These regulations apply to all outdoor grills that exceed 10 square feet, with the decision we just made before.
Okay.
So if it's greater than 10 square feet, this would apply to
Okay.
them with CUP or without.
I'd like to have one other item included in there. No CUP required for special events.
Defined as?
Well, special events isn't defined, though, is it?
Right, and we need to have something
I think we
definition
could fix that by
for
next week.
special events. We barbecue ourselves, even though it's the city, you know. The issue in here is the smoke, as everybody says. Whether smoke is made by the city or it's made by somebody else, it's irrelevant.
Okay. Do majority agree on special events?
Depending on what special events means.
Well, it's no longer than one day, you know. It's something-
We'll bring you back a definition that you may not find acceptable. We can modify
Yeah.
it next
Yeah.
week, but we'll bring you back something.
Yep. Well, number one, special events is not in here. You're going to have to come back with a definition of special events in the ordinance, and we'll have a chance to modify it if we don't like the definition. And we'll find out if it covers harvest market
That's
or
a
whatever.
regular event, then they would have to get a CUP, which
That's
they
why,
probably will not.
that's
our
why
view-
staff has got to craft it.
In our view, for example, a weekly recurring barbecue is not a special
Not a
event.
special event.
A special event might be 1 to 2 times a year, maybe once a month. I'm not sure where that falls. We'll have to work on
Unity
that.
Fest will be a special event.
Clearly, in my view, it's
Let's
once a
say
year.
you
Does
have
everybody-
Glendale Beautiful doing
Yeah.
something, or
Okay, time out.
Everyone's
Time out. Does everybody agree on the special event provision
Yeah.
with a definition constructed that we can rip on when the ordinance comes back? Okay,
Right.
next item. Mr. Menuchyan.
The issue with that was brought up by the fire department. I believe in the ordinance it says you have to build a cover and walls, 3 walls around it. Is that correct?
What page are you on?
I don't know.
It's again page 40,
it's on page 40.
And
Then
which
it's-
paragraph?
4, and I think it's in
Outdoor growing.
Chapter 9 as well. Tim, can you help me there?
Okay. The issue.
The issue is?
That's on page 1.
Issue is that the fire department and Mr. Sarkisian kind of said the same thing, and I don't know if that's what's included here. And he said that the public works and the fire department prefer that they clean up the area and trap the grease and dispose of it in a manner that is not going to go anywhere. It's not going to go in the storm drain or anywhere else. Based on what Mr. Sarkisian said, he said the grease does not go all over. They clean it up, and then they have a proper disposal company that comes and picks all that stuff up. And that's for his operation. I don't know about the rest. If all the operations are following that procedure, then that's consistent with what the fire department and public works preferred, if I understood it correctly. If there's no grease going to the ground and the charcoals and the grease that are in the barbecue are being collected and put in a container which is being picked up regularly and being disposed of properly, then we don't need to have the
Number
roof
4?
and the sides and all of that.
Probably not.
Well, you
probably
need the
not number
roof by
3
the
either.
fire. You need the roof by the health department.
Well, they have the roof by the health
So
department.
that's going to be required.
Right.
Is there anywhere in the ordinance that refers to the regulations in the health department?
No, we haven't included that.
Why not?
Well, because it's,
They apply already.
Subject to it already.
and we could reference
They're
some
already-
information.
They're subject to it already.
They apply.
Okay, so they're already subject to health department rules. So we don't have to be reiterating it.
No.
We could do it as a just public information kind of thing.
What other change are we making?
Just to clarify the answer to that question
Yeah,
that
that's what I'd like
Councilmember
to get.
Menuchyan asked, if you look at page 1 of the ordinance that we handed out, it has the construction operation requirements. It says that the walls and roof shall be made of non-combustible material. If there is no roof, then it's not an issue. It also says that the J on the next page, the grease and other waste must be cleaned immediately and must not be allowed into the sewer. It doesn't specify anything about how this is done. It just, they're performance standards, if I could call them that. But on page 40, the page that has these overall requirements for the grills that are more than 10 feet in area, number 4 says, as I read earlier, that the area must be covered by a roof to prevent stormwater from entering unless an alternate system of stormwater diversion is approved by the fire chief. It also says the roof must be sufficient vertical distance from the screening wall to allow for adequate ventilation, to the satisfaction of the fire chief. So I believe this gives the fire chief the alternative of accepting Mr. Sarkissian's proposals, and if he does, that would mean that there wouldn't have to be a roof, but
Well,
this...
there's always got to be a roof because it's a health department requirement. The roof
Well,
is not the issue.
The roof is actually for the whole grilling area in that number 4.
Okay.
There is a requirement, I believe, for health department that there be cover over the grill itself, but the area is larger. The grill is sitting in an area where people walk around. This would require the whole area, that's the grilling area, the cooking area around the grill, and the area enclosed by the screen wall, to have a roof over it. I think that's, maybe we weren't clear enough on that before.
You're talking, if the grill was 10 square feet, the outside area might be 100 square feet.
No, this is for the bigger ones.
Well, I'm
Well,
using
let's
it
say
as
it's
an
11 square
example.
feet.
As an
It's 11
example.
square feet.
Whatever the size of the grill, 100 square feet, maybe the area is 1,000 square feet. You want to cover over the 1,000 square feet, not just over the grill of 100
That's
square
what
feet.
this says as a preference from the fire department, but they can approve alternative roofing or alternative systems if that were brought to them and to their satisfaction. So part of the conditional use permit, because remember, there would be a conditional use permit in some of these, that would have to be addressed.
Well, then-
But otherwise, if there's no conditional use permit, it'll be planned.
Why not construct the ordinance such that it gives the latitude to the fire, looking at each case individually as it stands on its merits?
That's
Because
what it
everyone's
does.
going to be different.
That's what it does,
Well, this
Mr.
is
Mayor.
gonna-
What it does
this is
now.
gonna do that.
So what are we debating?
I'm not sure.
I just want to be...
We're clarifying it
well,
for...
I just want to be clear that, because from what I understood, what Mr. Sarkissian was saying is the same thing as what the fire chief said would be acceptable. But
And-
I didn't understand the ordinance in that manner. I understood in the ordinance that they have to have the roof covered, and they also have to build the side walls.
Unless an alternate system is
Okay.
approved.
Is it the part
The
that's in
screen
here
walls
says-
are required,
Okay.
but the roof is not if an alternate system is
Is
approved.
what it, words in here, to the satisfaction of the fire chief? Is that
Yes.
what covers everything?
Yes,
Okay, then that's
that's number 4.
that's
The
taken
screen
care of.
walls were for more for aesthetic purposes, blocking view from public right of way or from residential
Well, the fire
uses. It
chief
didn't really
is-
have to do
The
with
fire department's going to have the final say on whatever
rainwater.
is done in this case.
If the
So-
council feels that it would provide both the citizens, the banquet hall owners, and the council with a greater level of protection, we could add a sentence that indicates the fire department shall develop guidelines for implementing this section.
I don't know if they want guidelines, because every case could be individualistic.
Well, that's why they're guidelines.
Okay,
Mr.
Mr.
Mayor,
Mandukian.
that is my concern. The individual who's here now can make a statement, but if it's not in the ordinance, someone else, as was mentioned earlier, a couple of years down the line, can come and say, well, you've been doing it that way for, 5 years. I don't think it's sufficient. You got to now build
Right.
this.
And the fire
So-
chief generally doesn't check all this stuff.
Right.
He delegates to somebody
Right.
else.
Oh,
And
So I'd like
So
to
you
have
want
some
this-
sort of guidelines so
Okay.
people know what they
hey,
have
by
to.
next week, you can come
So-
back with
So you can add
guidelines.
that.
Mr. Mayor, if I can just
Yes.
clarify one thing in that area, we're talking, this number 4 mixes stormwater diversion with roof ventilation, and it says to the satisfaction of the fire chief. The stormwater diversion, at a minimum, should be slashed to me. So we're going to add that / Director of Public Works. The fire chief does have some responsibility when it comes to the grease traps and so forth.
But you got
With
the storm drain.
I just wanted you
Okay.
to know that.
Modify that then for next week.
I would like to have the guidelines similar to what the chief said earlier during his description of what was acceptable, if that's okay.
Guidelines
They
from
got the
you.
message.
Yeah, we will work together with
Right.
them. I think
Okay.
Mr. Woods was talking about the preference and would be to bring it inside to facilities that already exist.
Clean it up and bring it inside,
I think you
right?
got that one cleared up.
But we'll work with them.
Good.
Yeah,
What-
you weren't expecting that for next week. Yeah, he's got to see, because I
yeah.
heard someone say next week.
Yeah. It shouldn't be that much. I mean, there's no rocket science. I see their heads going up and down. That's easy.
He said yes.
Wait a minute. Can staff produce this by next week, yes or no?
The problem is, we have to publish
Got to go down a day or
Thursday. So we go into
The same
the
thing
agenda
that he
packet
said here.
Thursday. Can you do it by Thursday?
Yeah.
Just write down whatever he said. Yeah.
They'll prepare a draft at
two. It
least.
shall be done in a week.
The problem
On
is,
tape.
Mr. Mayor, it'll be in the agenda packet, which means it'll be published Thursday, so it's 2 days. And they'll put together a draft, and they may have to refine it
And
after
then
the
we'll tear it
meeting.
apart when it gets back to us. Okay, that's fair enough.
Okay.
What's next that has to be changed?
Number 6,
On what page?
on the same page, number
Okay.
40, it says hours of operation of outdoor grilling are limited to 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. These are for larger grills.
That's what it's saying.
I think that number, the hours should be taken out. It should say hours of operation of outdoor grilling shall be determined by the zoning administrator. Because everyone is going to go and get a CUP for this.
No.
It's not.
Anything
These
beyond
are
200
over-
feet, anything beyond 200 feet from a residential zone does not require a CUP. That's why we have to put something in here, because these regulations have to be measurable and specific. They cannot be discretionary.
Oh, okay.
Mr.
Okay,
Yusef,
I
we
see.
can keep the hours in. If they want to extend it, they can just
Okay.
request
Okay.
it during the
Well,
CUP.
it says also, and the operating hours may be extended to 11 p.m. Friday through Sunday, only extension of these hours.
By
may
the
be-
zoning administrators.
By the
through,
zoning administrator,
CUP.
okay, okay.
Actually, that is automatic.
So
The-
that's,
The
yeah.
operating hours
On
can go to
Fridays
11
and
p.m.
Saturdays, Sundays are
Friday,
all-
Saturday, and Sunday.
It's automatic.
If it's 200 feet from a residential zone, that would apply automatically. The zoning administrator can put any conditions on a conditional use permit. She could change that if necessary, but she would also be able to extend the hours as part of the CUP approval.
Right.
I seriously, that's going to be
Okay.
over 10 o'clock.
Good.
Okay,
Got that point done. What's next? Anything else?
this is it.
That's it?
And with all those points, I'll introduce the ordinance.
The ordinance has been introduced. What is next, please?
Well, is there any written communication or reports?
Yeah, I have a motion.
Is this a new business
New
item?
business motion.
I move that in the matter entitled City of Glendale versus Maryland DeGenova, Superior Court Case Number EC 043003, be offered a compromise and settle the action brought by the City of Glendale for the sum of $33,000 be and is hereby approved and accepted. The city attorney is authorized to accept payment in the above amount. Upon receipt thereof, file a dismissal with prejudice.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Discussion? Roll call.
Council members Manukian?
Yes.
Najarian?
Yes.
Quintero?
Yes.
Yusefian?
Aye.
Mayor Weaver?
Aye. What is next, please?
Just motion for adjournment in a second.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
We'll move second, adjourned at 8:46 PM.